Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live. We are going to be doing our makeup on the live, which is why I am like barefaced. And I just want to welcome to my live here today, Ashwa. Thanks for
Hi
coming in.
guys. Hi.
We're going to be talking a little bit about ghost stories today, and we'll be doing some Halloween makeup. So you can either leave it a surprise for everybody, or you can tell us what you're doing for your makeup, Ash.
Oh, I can share. I don't think we are on Facebook, by the way.
Oh,
Just so you
okay.
know. That doesn't
That
come on.
that is okay. It'll be, you know what? It at the least will be in the inner circle playlist. So I'm just in the midst of. Oh, look at that.
So this is the one I'm going to be doing.
Mhm.
So it's a monarch. I don't know if I'm going to do the mouth because we'll see. But that's what I'm going to work with. I'm going to work with this. So we'll see how it works.
Oh,
Do you have a
cool.
way to share what yours is?
No, because mine's a video, and I have it literally. You're sitting on where the video is, so I can't show you. I might be able, but you'll see, and it'll be like what I'm doing is kind of just like a basic skull shape. And then it'll be interesting because once I get to my nose, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, or like to this area. So we'll see. My skin is very, very white, so I have definitely some contouring to do to make this work today. Do you see any challenges with the makeup that you chose? I mean, you've been doing makeup all month long. If people have been following you, they would know this and they'll see like you've been posting your looks and
You know what it is? That certain things that you think would be really easy are like, I can't seem to do it. But then other things that are a little bit harder
yeah.
aren't as hard as they look. Like I noticed with my sister, I was just gonna do like a basic, like basically almost just all black, and like I made her look terrible. Like it was awful how bad it looked. Like we were power laughing at how bad it looked, and it should have been so simple. So I
Right.
mean, yeah, we'll just have to wing it and hope for the best.
We'll wing it. We'll wing it. Well, you're literally winging it by putting a wing on your eye. Ash, if I wanted to double check to see where we add people on the stream, where can I do that at? It's not, I'm just looking to see if there's a place to just simply add
It
it.
should be at the bottom below the cameras.
Hold
We're
on
gonna
a minute.
add somebody.
No, no, no. I wanted to make sure that it adds Facebook on here, but
Oh, add a destination.
yeah, because
I don't
normally
know.
I'll keep looking. I have more questions for you on this. So, when did you first start doing Halloween makeup?
This year.
This year? And was it something that like was hard for
Well, no, I
you
guess it was
initially?
last year that I did it. I don't know. Like, I'm a girl with like makeup, right? So, I mean,
Yes.
that's all it was. And then I did it. I did a few different ones last year. I don't even remember what. And then
Yeah.
I did like the spider web just underneath the eye the year before. And then this year I was like, I'm just going to have fun with it and test a bunch of random stuff out just for myself. Like, I didn't care that it was Halloween so much as it was just an excuse to paint my face weird. And I mean,
Right.
you're used to talking to me anyway. So I was like, well, we're talking anyways while we do makeup half the time. May as well just do something funky while I'm doing it. So my
Right.
aunt was down visiting and I'm like, do you mind if I paint my face? She goes, no. And I don't think she realized what I meant by like paint my face. And then,
Right.
yeah, it's fun.
That's cool. And I
Yeah.
know, like for me, I've sort of always done like the easiest thing, which is like the kitty, or like
But
makeup,
they look
and
good. Like they
then
have,
fill up the whole eye with makeup, and then eyelashes. And you can tell, like just me sitting here, like with naked, like Lindsay's face, like you've got blonde eyelashes. So like I literally, you can't see my eyelashes unless I put something on them, or I shine bright lights up on my
I
eyes.
don't even
So
have, yeah, my eyelashes are like non existent. So that's why I do
yeah.
eyeliner.
Are you ready? Should we begin?
Hell yeah, let's do
Let's
it.
begin. I don't know how to get it onto Facebook either right now, and I'm not going to worry too much about it because it'll be here on YouTube.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I'm going to just move us slightly.
Okay. I don't see, weirdly enough, for whatever reason, I don't see like what everybody else is seeing. I'm seeing from the last time we went live, but I'm on YouTube right now and can see it. And I can see like the big blotchy hand right there. So it looks cool. I like it.
Yay! You guys definitely feel free to join in the chat if you are on YouTube. It does also show there. I'm not exactly sure how to make it go to this other place, but it's okay. I'm gonna double check a few things. I'll just turn my camera off really quick. So it may seem like you're just sitting on the camera by yourself, but I'm here.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
BRB. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me, but we'll see.
Yeah, I notice when I'm doing this, like moisturizing my skin makes it easier for me to like actually move like lines around. So when I do something, usually I would say start off like I would take, because I have light brown eyebrows. I would take my eyebrow pencil and do the outline and then fill it in and then outline it again with black. Liquid black eyeliner for me personally has been the best thing you can use for filling it back in, because it gives it that like gives it like a finished sort of sheen to it. But I've ran out, so we're doing the outline with black eyeliner because I'm ballsy enough to try it, and we gotta hope for the best. But I've done what do you call it? Done like black around my eyes a couple times now, and it looks god awful. Like to do like a black eye just doesn't suit my face, because my eyes, I think because my eyes are such a dark color and they're small enough that they just sort of sink out of the way. But I think for me, the biggest thing is my hair that gets in the way. So I'm going to actually use this. Oh, I see a red something. I'm going to actually use this as my headband to hold my hair back. And I don't know why I thought looking at that was going to make sense. So I have this from the dollar store. It's just a mirror. And then I have my tablet sitting right there. So that way, hopefully you guys can see it as I do it. As long as it's like, oh, we'll see.
Okay, there we go. I was trying to get it so that we could zoom out at least.
This one goes up.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, good. Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, that works.
I haven't actually decided what I'm going to do for my colors and stuff. So you guys will be learning as I go. Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of the fun part of it. And I say don't always go with the template personally. Go with your colors that suit your face, because I realized that was a very stupid idea sometimes for me when I was like, what? Why am I doing a color I know doesn't look good at all on my face?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I know that I have to choose the colors wisely, because anything can actually end up looking like too much on my skin. So I got this really cool thing from, oops, I'm almost going to drop it, from Walmart, actually, because a lot of the drugstores in this area did not have, oh man, that was upside down. They did not have the, they didn't know, where did my water go? It's like, now that I started, it's gone. It's gone, man. No, they had these profusion thingies, and I thought
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love stuff like that.
You use them and you paint them onto your face, which is cool. But I can't find my water, so give me just a sec. Otherwise, I'm going. Oh, there it is. Yes. See, it's very dangerous to have all these electronics and then have water sitting here. But
I have a coffee sitting there.
Yeah, it is what it is. Here we go.
Right. You gotta be able to. Gotta hydrate.
You gotta hide. Yeah, I gotta. And I brought a couple things in here. I didn't get a towel, but I have a. What are these called? Cotton swabbies. So
cotton swabbies.
Cotton swabs. We're gonna do makeup. And I did some hyaluronic tinted serum before we began, because I did all my skincare and stuff. So I can't promise that what I'm doing is actually going to be a look or anything for anybody else. I just know that I found this particular look through. Her name is Miss Aaliyah J, and she has 1.57 million followers, and she did this 5 years ago. And she only had 260,000 hits on this, which is still quite a lot. But there's like to have like a couple, almost to a couple million. She I had to give her some props for also allowing us to still have access to this, because I've never drawn a skull on my face.
That might be a good idea to like. I can give you the link to the girl I got mine from afterwards or something to put in the info.
Oh yeah,
And that way, yeah, that way I never even
that'd be
thought to
good.
do that. I have no idea who she is, but I got her off Pinterest, so I will find out and add her.
Oh cool, yeah, that would be
Get
good.
her info.
That would be good. And anything that, like, I can actually save this to the playlist for the inner circle,
Yeah.
the intuitive wellness circle, or the inner wellness circle, whatever you want to call it, IWC. What do we go by these days? But
Intuitive Wellness Circle, yes.
yeah.
For some reason, I just want to call it center. Maybe because I know you want to do a center someday.
Right.
And like,
yeah.
We're envisioning, we're manifesting early without realizing it. Okay. Then we're going to do.
She just basically, from what I can tell, is filling in her whole eye with black. And then she does like a lighter brown color.
I like that she adds different colors though to it, so that it's not just so, you know what I mean?
she chooses her darker colors well. And the one thing I noticed too is that like she's going to end up filling that whole area with, is she going to, we'll find out. I can't recall. I remembered when I saw this though, I was like, this is it. This is the one. I got this. Oh, maybe she is going to have eyebrows. Most people that I noticed did this, filled it in from like up here all the way down and then like underneath.
Yeah, like that was actually, I found the ones where they did the eyebrows as part of it. I kind of thought that was a cool idea because then you don't have to deal with doing eyebrows at the same time.
You'll get to see our lovely like makeup faces that we make. Okay. I think I got part of it down.
I don't know if mine so much looks like a butterfly, but we'll see. We'll make it work.
Yeah, I feel like when things like this are done, it's like we can tend to sort of think, oh my god, like I'm not gonna do it right, and if I don't do it right, I won't look perfect, and if I don't look perfect, then I'm not worthy, and it's like,
right?
No, you are still worthy, girl. Do your makeup. Do your makeup. Don't worry about it. You don't need to compare yourself to anybody else.
This is something I recommend. I got this off of Wish for free, okay? And it is a makeup, what do you call it, like sponge thing for cleaning your makeup, cleaning your brushes off in between. Must have. I absolutely love it. And when I was at my sister's doing everyone's makeup, I will say I wish I had it because it was a pain in the butt trying to, when I'm spoiled getting to use this, having to go back to using like paper towel or something to wipe makeup off on. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this.
I hear that.
Okay. So we were also thinking of sharing some creepy experiences that we've dealt with since we both were raised. Well, you know, the funny thing is like we say like raised in haunted houses, but who's to say it wasn't just because we were both open, you know what I mean? Like openly seeing spirits when we were little, that it wasn't just every house is like that. And we just noticed it because
like every house is haunted. I like that idea though.
Yeah, like to me it is. You know, every house, like when people are like, you know, my house has a spirit in it. It's like, well, I would hope so, because that make, you know, like where it'd be kind of weird if you went in a space and there wasn't something going on there, you know?
Yeah. What when did you become like, were you always kind of aware that there was something there, or like did other people around you when you were younger like sort of show that they were like also experiencing things there? Or was it more of like,
well, see, this is where I was lucky. So for those of you who don't know, I have an older sister. I was like, oh my God, I have to think about it. There's five of us all together, two little brothers, an older brother, but I was raised with my sister. And my sister and I, for some reason, because siblings will like, bullshit and lie with each other growing up all the time. But for some reason, when it came to that stuff, that was a no-go zone. You didn't lie about that. So
Yeah.
if you had an experience, you didn't lie about it. So it was nice because she experienced, if not in the moment, the same thing I dealt with. She dealt with it soon after.
Mm.
But ours was a house my dad built, and we had been living like in a small little cottage house by the water in this village, and we moved up towards like a back street. And my dad built this little bungalow, and for some reason it was like whatever, like the year I was turning 6. And the very first night we moved in there was the very first time I personally can recall ever having had an experience with like anything spiritual, whatever, like something not of this earthly plane, I guess. And
Mhm.
it's happened like my first night
So was it with
there.
your sister first then is what you're
No,
saying? Oh,
because see, I was always raised in the other house because it was so small. I shared a bedroom with my sister, and we had bunk beds.
right.
And this house, I had my own bedroom,
Okay.
so it was my first time sleeping by myself. But my bedroom was right across the hall from my parents. We had our German Shepherd puppy sitting
Oh.
right outside. And I know he was because we literally that dog for 14 years slept outside my bedroom.
Do you think because of this activity? I mean, not to like draw it and be like, I know it's because of the dog. Like, but do you feel like maybe that the dog was protective of you? Because it seems like most animals kind of are of
Oh,
their baby.
he's totally had experiences with us.
Oh,
To the
really? He was
Oh
there for
God.
something.
Oh yeah, he would like
Was
he'd
and he
react
wasn't
to a
just
lot of it.
reacting to your reaction. Was he having
Oh
responses
no, like
before?
we would hear noises in the basement, for instance, and our dog would go to the top of the stairs. Like, cause it was like, you walk in the door and you can go downstairs towards the basement or upstairs
Yeah.
towards the rest of the house. That's what it was like. And we would be in the living room in the so-called like main floor, like upper part, and he
Yeah.
would go to the top of those stairs and start growling at the noises coming from the basement.
Oh, wow. Were they, like, audible, or was it more of, like, do you think he was, like,
It
telepathically
was
picking up on
Oh,
it?
well, we would hear it, my sister and I, when
Oh,
we'd be home alone. Yeah, we'd be sitting there
so
and
you
we
guys are
hear,
hearing it and he's hearing it, so you're all
yep.
auditorily
Oh
having that
yeah, like
experience.
we're in like you
Whoa.
come up the stairs and you're in the living room, and then
Yeah.
off of that is the kitchen kind of opened up, and we'd be sitting in the living room, I mean in the kitchen, and we could hear noises of people walking around in the basement, crashing and banging, moving stuff around, and like audible walking, not talking though, but you could hear walking around, all that jazz. And the dog would
Wow.
walk to the top of the stairs and start growling at it, and like that would be enough to make us just go, because there's your German Shepherd who would like eat anything for you. And if he's scared and shaking his boots, you're like, oh no, like something's going on. But
Right.
my very first night in the house, I dreamt of my first dream that was what do you call it? Um, a reoccurring dream because it kept recurring throughout the night, and it was just a basic weird dream. I had a dream that the house kept going to explode, and then I'd have to run outside, and when I did, my family would be out there. And I had that dream like 4 or 5 times in a row, to the point where even in my dream I was starting to become aware of it
Mm,
and would go, am I dreaming or am I doing this again?
right.
And that was when I'd actually wake up. I noticed there are people at the foot of my bed,
Okay.
and they would be there pretty much every night. God, almost until we moved out when I was 14, 15,
Oh,
14.
wow.
Yeah, no, yeah, but 13ish. I don't know. Yeah, terrifying. So you want to tell us a little bit about yours?
Yes. The place I lived was, like, out in the middle of suburbia above Seattle. And I don't know, it was always a mystery whether or not my family was experiencing what I experienced. I mean, that would have been great to have somebody come out in my family and be like, I'm experiencing it too. But majority of everybody at that time was ashamed to talk about that, if they did experience it, because it wasn't talked about, or um, it was denied because it sounded so fantastical. They really wanted to
Yeah.
be rational and be accepted into, like, since my grandparents came from Denmark, they really wanted to be accepted by the people. And they moved out into this small town in Montana that was still coping from all of the atrocities to the native people there. And so there was already this kind of like, when we first came to this country, there was almost all of this stress happening. There were wars within the first 5 years of my grandfathers being here. They went to war for the United States, even though they technically were not citizens yet. And so there was this kind of this background where there was already all this like violence that had been seen by the previous generation. So I honestly wondered if, as a kid, my family wasn't haunted by the choices of the former, generation kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. So there was a little, my mom would have all these relics like and they were from trading posts where natives would trade for money because people would go there, and so it would create a certain amount of money for the people in the area. So a lot of times my mom would go and just try to buy stuff so that they could have money being made, and sometimes they'd be directly there, the craftsmen and things like that. And I remember walking up the stairwell was one of the most hot areas of the whole house. And if you've had a house that's like haunted, you could call it haunted, or there's, I think, layers of other spirits or beings or consciousness that exists there. Definitely became aware of it as soon as I could be conscious. Like, they were very interactive, and I believe in that house probably still are, because the people who live there only choose to kind of go back once in a while. Like, they don't want to live there full time either. So it's not surprising.
That's
It seems like
creepy.
everyone who's ever lived in that house has come to a space where they don't want to be in it anymore, and they end up having their life kind of fall apart. Because have you seen the show The Shining,
Oh yeah.
or the
Yeah.
movie The Shining?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like similarities between that movie, which is imagination, and like the reality I lived in that house. There was a lot of horrifying things where embodied, disembodied voices. You could hear knocking on the wall. The doors would shut behind you and lock. There were full apparitions that people would see. Even the neighbors thought that there was something going on and would bring shotguns over to our house thinking there was somebody attacking the house. It was just really bizarre because I had an uncle visiting from Montana, and apparently he was like, at the time they didn't think it was appropriate to talk about with me, but I was talking to him on the phone, and he said that there was something bad. He goes, Lynn's, he was kind of a hippie. He was cool. He was like, Lynn's, he goes, he said, there is a bad energy in that house. And he kind of got quiet, and I said, well, what do you mean? And he was like, what do you mean you don't know? And I said, I was like in my 20s. I said, let's just say I don't know. Like, how else are we going to say this? But let's just say I don't actually know what you're talking about right now. He's like, I'm surprised. Your mom and I had a discussion at length about that. And my mom was still alive at this time. So I was like, I felt so betrayed. My mom would tell my uncle all about this experience, but not me, So I was like, what is going on? But we all had experiences in that stairwell, and
Hmm.
that stairwell really, you'd be sitting in the living room, and the next thing you'd know is there would be some lady standing on the stairwell looking at you, a full apparition of white, and all of us would look up from the couch and look at her while we were watching TV, and everybody else would look back at the TV, and I'd be like, hello, mom, what is this? She's like, I don't know. It just, something just comes and stands there and stares at us. And I was like,
Oh my
that's,
god.
mom, but that's not normal, like, Like, mom.
How long
So,
were they in that house for
oh, we
before
were
you guys
there.
finally moved?
My mother was only there until she was divorced from my father, so she was there until probably 2014, and then things ended really horribly. Um, and then also for her, she left around that time and just moved out. But my dad continued to stay there, and he really had a tough time. And I can't speak for him, but it was really tough. And I know that a lot of my family was going through addiction at the time, but I often wonder, looking back, was this kind of connected to that, this almost like dissolving of a family bond. And there's a story that goes along with the house. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the house itself was built by a crazy man. Whoops. And I say crazy man, but not to sound ableist at all, but like crazy as in crazed, if you use the word crazed, just like in The Shining. There was a man, and he was the builder of the house. He had got procured enough money to do what he was doing, and he ended up finding that it was really, really, really tough to continue building this house monetarily. He had an addiction, and he had an addiction to um, some sort of drug, and he succumbed to an overdose. The question is still up in the air as to where, because he
Like
loved the house
where in the
so much
house you
he
mean?
wouldn't, where he died,
Yeah.
because the house had so much paranormal activity. And anybody who lived in that house would oftentimes succumb to some sort of addiction.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I could see, like, if they had an addiction already, how that would, weaken their resolve kind of thing to being. But, like, what I want to know, and I always wonder this when you hear stuff like this, why, what is it they're doing that's, like, you know what I mean? What are the spirits or essence of the house doing to cause this to happen?
Well, Malidoma Patrice Thome says, and he's a shaman from Africa, and he was taken as a child. He was kidnapped and forced into priesthood, a Jesuit priesthood, and he said that anytime somebody enters your field energetically, that you don't agree with, or like it's a separate consciousness, you literally are struggling with your space and their space, and recognizing that.
And we
And we
know
have,
when people feel like they're, like, really stressful to be around, that does, you can feel it affect you. Yeah.
yeah, it does. And like, I think that's when they talk, a lot of Catholic priests will say you've been afflicted, or possibly this is a vexation, you know
Hmm.
and that they might have different quantifications of what that measure means. Like, for them, a lot of times they'll say things like possession, but I think, isn't that what happens when we hang out with people that aren't good for us? They affect us mentally, emotionally. It doesn't have to be
Well,
like
and
a
if you have a fear and a belief that can take you in that direction, like, kind of feed it. Not say there isn't some pretty credible cases or anything of what they would call possession, but it does make you wonder, like, those people that are experiencing it, were they raised around that kind of belief? Even if they didn't believe it themselves, did they have a fear of that happening?
Yeah, and I think, like, we can project onto our experience too. Like, if we're afraid, we might be afraid of somebody who is, in spirit form, that needs our help, but we might be
Hmm.
also feeling like um, we don't know what to do, because um, we've never really had to deal with it. So, a lot of times it can be forms of like depression, and forms of, where we've literally had this feeling of waking up and having exhaustion. Like, how do you know that isn't a spirit in your? You can't say it isn't. If it is, but then again, you can't also disprove that those things aren't happening. When we're around a negative person, we have like that covert sort of stuff that happens, when we're around people who are, um, trying to control us. Like, you can feel that being exerted onto you, or somebody is taking your energy. But everything that happens to us isn't just happening to us, it's also happening because we're giving it permission to like exist in our field. So
Oh, fuck yeah. Excuse me.
you know, like he said, it's like coming, sometimes they believe in their culture that you have to come to terms with what the issue is with that spirit, because that spirit has specifically chosen you to be around you. And there would be a lot of people who would be like, no, 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 you get to choose, you don't have to give. But if you do have a spirit that is sick and it is attached to you, and you don't know how it got in, by the way, when I say got in, I mean into your aura, right? Like, you've got to figure out what it is that contributed to that state. You know,
Right.
was there something where you were giving that energy to another human being, and then it didn't, like, you ended up sort of picking up things? Like, I know people who have gone and worked in these paranormal houses and these type things, and they end up sort of feeling like really bad. And you know, whether they're mentally like exhausted, or they, you know, they find themselves in, they don't, you ask them, well, what have you been doing to sort of like protect yourself or cleanse yourself when you go into these spaces, because that really does impact people. And most of the time they say, oh, I don't know. What you mean? Like, I use sage, you know, and it's like, I think you and I have discussed that and talked about it too. It's like, that's not enough. And sometimes you're using things that are spirit attractant. So it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like getting to that point where you're discerning that and understanding like
Well,
that.
it's doing your research too. Like when it comes to, like, say, the things you burn, like you said, like some of them attract spirits, not detract. So,
Right, right.
and what are you, like you said, where are you at mentally, physically in your life? Where, you know, where are you at in your resolve? Where are you at in your beliefs? You know, to
It's
kind of
definitely a
hold your
challenge to
own.
have a spirit adopt you and to like live with it. And I wish that it could just be as simple as going and burning some sage and cleansing the space and doing Reiki. And, you know, and sometimes that's enough. The belief, the shifting of that belief is enough for people. But on the other hand, I think like in this case, I'll just share a couple more stories. Maybe if you haven't made up your mind and you're like, well, wait a second, how do I know for sure that's true? Um, it's really, I think, not so much about us proving to you whether or not it's true. It's like you coming to your own conclusions on what is real for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's sometimes easier said than done. Like when you have a spirit. So it's just good to know. Like, I would wake up and feel like somebody had been watching me. And it's the same feeling that a woman gets when, you know, she is leaving her window open and she sees somebody staring in, and it's like, whoa, was that person staring at me? I don't know. You know, you go into these spaces where you kind of feel slightly paranoid because you feel like somebody's watching you or listening to
It's like
you.
a violated feeling, almost like a violation of your, like, privacy kind of thing. It's what it reminds me
Yeah,
of.
it is. It's like, okay, and then doors shutting behind you, and you're like, am I closing the door? Like, I put something, so I started putting stuff between the door to stop it from happening. You know, and it was really tough because I found myself sort of feeling a little crazy, like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind
But
here. And
that's a smart thing to do. Like, I think when it first starts happening and you're little, you don't, because it's like, oh my God, you know, you're scared of it. But then once you get used to it, you know, you want to start to discover and be like, no, is this really happening even for yourself? So some of the best people when it comes to debunking this kind of stuff or proving it are the people that go through it, because, you know, you've gotten used to it to the point where we're like, no, you know, and you go and want to figure it out kind of thing.
yeah, well, and you know, so the door was really heavy, and I remember my cousin showing up, visiting from Montana, and she was like, you know, do you ever get the creeps in this house? And I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, and not only do I get the creeps, but my girlfriends won't sleep over either. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And a lot of my girlfriends find it really like creepy. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, I have to be honest. The last few times I came here, something was turning off the light in the bathroom, which is one of those places that you feel like somebody is um, staring at you. It's like one of those places. And it was not, it isn't the place you want to
No.
kind of feel somebody staring at you.
No, of course, yeah, definitely not.
You're naked. You got soap in your eyes, you know? It's like nobody wants to feel that. And you could just totally feel that sense of like somebody staring at you as it was happening. So, You almost got to this point where you didn't want to take your clothes off, you know? It was like, so what I know is that this man, when I say he was kind of crazy, he honestly didn't, I guess he had a new marriage in his life. This woman had been a girlfriend of his for a while,
Mm.
and she ended up, um, she ended up breaking up with him, divorcing him. They just had a child, and it was because of this addiction he had that was damaging the family. And he was spending all this money on that he had maybe gotten for his business to build houses, and he started just spending it on this house we were living in. And one of the things that I know was that he wasn't happy. He was trying to get perfection, and he wasn't able to get that with, like, so he started creating a second house, and that it didn't make any sense at that point. Was he sort of like was this like drug delusion, or is this something that it was for sure kind of
Like
um
paranormal.
yeah, what was it? And it's hard to say because what existed before that was some horse stalls, you know. And so I was like, wow, that's really weird. And you would every now and then hear what sounded like a horse kicking a wall really hard. It sounded like a gunshot going off. And then it
Oh,
would sound,
fascinating.
and I don't know if that's how the person who lived there before handled it, but whatever, it was super traumatizing for the people involved, and it stayed with the land. So my cousin and I were downstairs underneath, where my parents' bedroom were at, and there was this loud kicking sound, and my cousin, I remember she flew off of where she was sitting, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I hear that all the time." And she's like, "What was that?" And I just remember thinking, like, I actually don't really know. It happens all the time though. And so we went upstairs and we were looking around to see if anything had fallen, or, did, obviously maybe something really did go, maybe there was an explosion. We get up there and it couldn't be more peaceful and quiet of a day. And it was so bizarre because it was like, what happened? Like it sounded so loud. And yeah, there was always something. There were a few places in that house that you just couldn't really be at by yourself. And I was babysitting the girl that lived in the other duplicate house, and I said, "Can I ask you some questions?" She's like, "Sure." I said, um, "Have you do you think that there's like certain spaces in this house that are like haunted?" And she kind of got quiet and was like, "Well, actually," she said, "there's some weird spaces in this house for sure." And we compared our weird spaces, and they just so happened to be the same weird spaces that were
Oh,
in both
that's
houses.
weird.
Hmm.
That's like a mirror almost.
Yeah, it was really wild. It almost seemed like the guy that built the house might have he might he maybe it was something like the trauma happened and then he stayed in that house. I don't know. But he lost his marriage. He lost his building permits. He lost his house, and he lost so much. And it was so devastating that I think he stayed with the house. And I think that these weird sort of anomalies that my family would get used to, and my like cousins and stuff knew about, I don't think that I don't know. I don't think that they actually were I don't think that anybody was really comfortable there, or craved that uh like being alone in that space without people. It was wild.
So, well, so you had like your family. We had a lot of common things. Like for instance, where the hallway was, we always had the lights off because that's where the bedrooms were, and
Mhm.
we would hear voices coming down the hallway. Like it would sound like my sister's voice, and
Oh
my
wow.
sister would be down in the basement. Yeah, so we would hear a lot of like calling. of, like, for instance, this voice would call my name in Amanda's voice to get me to come down the hallway, things like that. And then my sister would hear like whispering, and they'd be like, psst, psst, come here, psst, psst, like that.
And where do you
So
think it was trying to like get her to go?
we don't know, because it didn't really seem like it was trying to lure her anywhere. They were trying to get me to go towards my sister's bedroom, but like that was down the hall, like where all the bedrooms were. So it didn't
Right.
really matter. Like, I don't think it really mattered. I think it just wanted me down the hallway kind of thing.
It was trying to just control you by moving you around, like
Well, no,
getting you
I
to play
felt like
this
it
game.
was trying to get me down the hallway.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like towards the bedroom. So I don't know like what that would have entailed once I got there, but
Mm.
yeah, just weird stuff like that. So it seemed like a lot on that half of the house almost, because like in the basement, I don't know why, but like we spent a lot of time down there in the family room hanging out, and it was fine. It would be creepy sometimes, but more like, looking back, it seemed more like just generalized creepy that anyone would get, when you're little and in a basement.
Mm-hmm.
But as we got older, it seemed to be more towards the spare bedroom, like down the hallway that would have been above there. And I remember my cousin and I like trying to like contact spirits and try to like do weird shit in the spare bedroom down there, and it's like it does make you wonder to a degree, because that ramped it up. Like there's always something there, but it felt like we made it worse after we were doing stuff like that at
Right.
that
Well,
end
and
of
I
the
think
house.
people don't realize too that like Ouija boards are like they're really just paper,
Yep.
and they're old spirit boards, which aren't really all that scary, but there's part of it that is like opening a portal, because it's just an intention. But even then, if it's not that strong, then that spirit isn't really like, if
But
it's
when
not
you're young and
equal.
stupid and asking for them to come in, who knows who you're inviting in, right?
Oh
So
my gosh, right? No, that's true. But there
and
is an
like we
awareness that
were.
intuitive people have, that I feel like they discern good versus, like, I notice a lot of them can feel that. You
Well, yeah,
know.
like I always say, like we've talked about this a million times, but like trust your instincts. And I think that's like for women, a lot of times when they've been attacked by people like that they
Yeah.
don't know, say that they meet in public, they always say, I had a feeling and I wish I had to listen to it.
Right.
Listen to it, because you're getting that feeling for a reason, and it's your alarm system telling you, like, hey, this isn't right. So like I think we all have it. It's just learning to trust it and really like pay attention to it, because it is there. It's very much there. But my thing is like my parents I don't know, like I still to this day don't really fully understand what was going on with them, because they never really like seem to have experiences there, but they've had their own experiences otherwise in their
Mm-hmm.
lives. So like they've all had experiences with spirits in some fashion. It runs in my family through all of them, both sides of the family, but they didn't seem to so much in the house. They're just my parents woke up all the time to me laying on the floor in their bedroom, and they'd be like, Ashley, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I saw a spirit, blah 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 blah. And they're like, ugh. And sometimes they make me go back to bed. Other times they just go back to sleep. But they never told me, like, no, that's wrong. What you're experiencing isn't happening. It just seemed like they're like, ugh, not again. Like that was more their mentality towards it,
Right.
which I think made me lucky in that sense, because I never had to feel like I was being judged for something, because they could tell like I was going through it, and they were going to go through it with me. If they weren't gonna save me, I was gonna make it their business too. Like
Right.
I was too terrified not to. And then Amanda, my sister, having gone through it as well, as much as I don't want someone to go through it, it was a blessing not to be alone. But when we moved, there was the people who moved in there, we know them personally, and they never experienced anything, because
Yeah.
we warned them of it. And Amanda asked, like, she asked after a while, once we got closer to them, was like, did you ever have an experience? And they're like, no, we've never had one. but we don't
Mm.
know what their belief is towards stuff like that or anything. But I thought it was weird, but it kind of followed us to the next house just on a lighter note instead. Like we felt safe and protected in the woods instead of like something was coming out to get us kind of idea like it did in the last place.
You know, when a lot of the times when we were running up the stairs before bedtime, there would be somebody behind us. And I noticed my mom would be in front of everybody if she was going to sleep, and she would tell one of the kids, like, and this went on to my brother, who then told one of the kids to basically shut off the light
So
behind
they didn't have to deal with it. So they
them.
didn't have to do it. Yep.
Yeah, and so I would be the slowest poke at some point and have to be the one that was, you know, shutting the light off, which meant going back down in the lighted, front area. And then once the light was off, there's the run up the stairs where something is touching you. And most of the time you could hit the light and make it about 3 or 4 seconds forward. And
Yep.
yeah, it wasn't good. It was very bad, and it felt really scary to, like, have something touching you as a child in your rear end and you can't see it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a little much. We didn't have to deal with sexual stuff, thank God.
yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't say, like, it led into sexual things as much as I think maybe it was just to be scary, like, whoever it was like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I'm aiming for." Like, I'm aiming to
Right.
freak you out, and,
And that wouldn't be too surprising. Yeah, they just do it to be like a bother and they know it's going to gross you out and scare you.
Well, one day, well, I started sleepwalking kind of at the peak of a lot of this stuff happening, and I remember, um, at that point kind of being like, "Well, what do you do? Like, you can't, um, stop the spirit from doing what it's gonna do, and then on the other hand, you don't really know what it's capable of." Um,
Yeah.
so I just decided to stand off, like, and they call this exposure therapy for people who are like going through exposure therapy, but yeah, it's to kind of help you move past fears and things like that. And yeah, there was kind of this feeling of dread, and immediately I recognized that that wasn't me, my energy, and that there was something else going on in that moment. And I looked over to my right, which was where, it was almost like, could you imagine being in the dark and seeing all the different levels of black that you can have? So there's a couch, right? And then it's kind of backlit, so light is coming through these old metal blinds. And there's a figure of a man that is darker than the rest of the room, like black, pitch black, but blacker than the black in the room. And he
Yep.
had a hat on. And I remembered like turning the light off and just standing there thinking, this is a solid person who is in the house. And I can only see him when the light goes off. This is really weird. I had an incredible fear of the dark at some point, but I knew that that fear of the dark came from the people that would come out of it. So I had this theory that if I had the light on, then everything would be fine. So when I turned the light off and he was standing there, I was like, I'm going to ask him what he's doing here. Because if anything, he could already just have me dead right now. He could just kill me. If this is a real human being, like he could just murder me and I'd be dead. So I'm just going to ask him. So I said to him, I was so tiny. I remember looking at him and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. But I said, my heart was racing. It was like up here in my throat. And I just looked at him and I said, what are you doing in my living room? And and when I said my living room, he seemed more angry, but it was almost like you could tell it was a reaction at this point. And he said, I don't have to effing tell you who I am. He said, it was a threat. It was like, if you don't go to sleep, I'll give you something to cry about, or I'll give you something to cry about. And he was mimicking something that was said to me as a kid. And it was a damaging sort of statement. And I remember thinking, you're not a nice person to say that. Like, and I thought, he's been
Yeah.
watching me for years. And I thought, I saw my guide when I was a kid and he was smiling and laughing. This person was not smiling. He was not laughing. He was very upset. And from what I could tell, he was very he was very, uh, angry, so angry, so angry. And I think that a lot of it came from some unhealed part of him, and he was choosing, for whatever reason, to reveal himself instead of hiding like he would typically do. So I thought that was interesting that he decided to reveal himself in the midst of being potentially more afraid. I actually realized that I wasn't as afraid of him, and I could move around the house. It was just that he was an angry person, you know? And my uncle actually told me that he would go by in certain places of the house and he would experience, you know, different spirits who were kind of in the midst of like trying to interact. And I remembered saying to my uncle, like, I don't know if you had an experience here in the house. And he would go, yep. And he would say, I don't know if you've had an experience here in the house. And the same thing with that lovely lady that I used to babysit. Like, she would tell me where she was having the difficulties, and it would be in the same places. So multiple people in these houses having similar experiences. And it was like, I would love to hear what everyone's explanations of it were. um,
Right.
there wasn't enough conversation around those things. And what I do know now is that it just seems like there is some sort of portal in that house, and spirits move in and out of it, and they do interact with people. They just are very angry and upset. And maybe there is some stuff there where it's best not to go look into it, because this isn't something that is solved by the things that would be making other humans happy. I don't know that there's enough drugs and money in the world to make that spirit happy. He's very angry. I also found out that he was he passed from a some sort of drug addiction. And so, possibly in the house from what we can tell. And um, he really didn't get to finish the house and live in it the way that I think he had desired to.
Yeah.
So, um, I tried to live with him and just make peace with the fact that he was there and just kind of avoid him. One day, and this was actually in the fall, my brother and I were at home. He was babysitting me, interestingly. And I remembered, we both looked out the window
Hmm.
and saw a guy walking up the street, and I thought he was drunk because, I thought, oh my gosh, somebody's walking home from this bar down the way. This must be what it is. And it ended up disappearing. And I thought, maybe I'm just seeing like a cloud that's like low on the road, and maybe that's all it is. And I told my brother to come look, and maybe it was just a piece of fabric that was flying towards us, but it just kept disappearing. And I said to my brother to come look, and he looked, and he started freaking out about what he saw and got away from the window and was like really upset. And I was like, I'm calling mom. And I called my mom and was like, somebody's outside. And she's like, because I thought if there's anything that we can do about it, we should do something about it to get people to help us, because we're just two people here. We don't even have adults with us right now. And my mom
Yeah.
was at work, and I remembered her saying, like, wait a minute, is everything okay? And I just said, I don't know. And she was like, what are you seeing? And I was like, it looks like a drunk man walking up the street. And she's like, what is he doing? And like parts of his body were just fading away. Like his arm was fading away, his leg was fading away, and popped back in again. And right as he was walking, it looked like he was like slightly on fire. And I said, okay, so what do we do? My brother's freaking out. And we decide like the best thing that we can do is to call my mom, and she calls the neighbor who, which I've talked about this particular neighbor who was like an uncle to me. He was ex drug cartel member, and he came over with his shotgun. He like went around the house apparently and decided that he was going to look for the intruder, because maybe the intruder was actually there for him. And because we're right next to each other, is it possible that this intruder is coming to look for him and that they're with like Mexican drug cartel? It's possible. So he's over there with his shotgun. hiding out in our bushes waiting for anybody to mess with us. Like he was protecting the house. And not to say like violence is good, but like when you're really stressed out and you need to know that there's a perimeter night guard or whatever, he was there. And he was just such an amazing, lovely person. And you know, he was actually one of the most sophisticated guys that I feel like I ever really met. So I thought it was so interesting that you know, we were going through what we were going through, and we had like this protector off in the off around the corner. So we were lucky in that way. Like a lot of kids that go through this, maybe they don't have that protector, and it sometimes feels like it would just be so nice to have somebody who could understand and, you know, say, hey, I may not get it what it's like to be inside of your body and like to be experiencing everything that you're experiencing, but I'm here for you. Like just having another adult say, hey, I'm here for you. Everything's okay. Came and knocked on the door and he did some special knock. I could tell it was special. Like my mom had given him, she was a Virgo, so she had special knocks. I think she told him to give us like a special knock. So he was like key coding the door, knock, 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 knock. And she said, when we heard that, that would probably be him. And he did the knock, but then he couldn't do this whole knocking system my mom had. And he ended up saying, Lindsay. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, I don't know if I should say his name.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But we'll just say Bob. He's like, it's Bob. And I was like, Bob. And he was like, don't open the door, okay? And I was like, oh, he's like, it seems like everything is clear. I went around the house twice, but I'm just going to be here, okay? And then he was like, okay. And he got really quiet, and you could tell he almost like, he like hustled back into the trees behind our house and just disappeared. And I was like, wow, like that was really amazing. But what we were seeing was unmistakable. He was absolutely a person with parts of their body fading in and out of this reality. And I wasn't the only one that physically saw it. You know, when that loud bang.
Were they headed towards the house when they did that?
Oh, yeah.
It
was creepy. The guy was looking right at me. Like I could see him and he could see me. And no matter the physical distance of this physical world, like there was something in that spirit that was like, it seemed like what I would now look at, I would call it like an earthbound spirit, but a hungry ghost. I don't know if you've heard of that, where they desire things they need to feed off of to have energy. And I feel like this particular ghost, I kept thinking was drunk the whole time because it was hungry for something. And our house is like a big beacon, like drawing in spirits. And I'm like, oh no, this is not what I want to go to sleep to tonight. No, thank you. And, you know, the more spirits that would come into the house, they would follow that person who had the addiction, that would be drinking alcohol or doing cocaine. They would follow you around, and they would stay with you, and they would then come home after you fell asleep and kind of attack everybody around you until you went and fed them again. And so, you know, I believe that that's kind of what a few of these spirits were. A few of them seemed like they were hiding out in the house. The woman who would kind of come down and look over the stairwell seemed like she was peaceful and nice. Like maybe she just was happy to see us, you know, watching TV and hanging out together. It was really interesting. But she would always stand kind of by this one thing my mom had purchased that had like somebody had like sewn a duck onto like a huge embroidery thing. And it wasn't like amazing or anything. No offense, spirit friend. But like it was just like really, you know, average as far as like it wasn't but my mom really liked it because it represented kind of this, like she liked the idea of geese and duck being around everywhere, like pictures and stuff. And so when she saw that, she got it. And the woman would always stand next to that when she would be walking. She'd walk halfway down the stairs and then she would look at you. I could invite people over who would say, well, I don't experience those things, I'm Christian. I would say it doesn't matter what your religion is. You could be whatever religion you want in this house. This spirit will come down and you'll see it in a few seconds. And an ex-boyfriend of mine was sitting on the couch with me, and I just was spaced out. And that spirit came down and stood there and watched. And that's when he had looked up and saw it and had, you know, all these SWAT team nightmares in his own life of really struggling at that point with like feeling like paranoid that somebody was going to get him, and then just have this spirit standing there. And I told him it would happen, that like, hey, there's this thing that happens. I feel kind of weird about you just hanging out in the living room without knowing about it. And sometimes I wouldn't say anything, and someone would say, "That's weird. I thought I saw someone standing there." But at that time, he saw somebody full body, and he went and chased them down. He chased them up the stairs, around the corner, and he fell down. And I heard this big boom, and I went, "Oh no, there's really somebody in the house!" Ah, like I was thinking maybe that he didn't see a spirit, but he saw a real person because
Yeah.
he was 100% believing like this is and we had like I think tons of different tests done to see if there were any chemicals and things really like there weren't really any like lead chemicals in the house or any chemicals that seeped into there wasn't really any reason naturally other than spirit and maybe limestone being in the earth's core. Other than that, I can't think of what else would record this information. But he chased after it and he said it just faded away as he ran down the hallway after it. It just went away. And he was so shocked. He said he ran back down the stairs again and opened the window and expected to see somebody running away because that's the only way they could have just disappeared and got past him because you would have had to escape out the window or something. And it was just very strange because almost every space in the house had like an escape route or an escape hatch so that you could just easily climb down off the deck if you needed to run away, or if you needed to jump out the window and go down the side of the roof, you could. And there were a lot of like escape hatches built into this. So I felt like there was it was really interesting. It was an interesting house to live in. And, after being in more spaces that have spirits in them, I appreciate going through those experiences, although some of them are negative in my memory and not necessarily positive. And I hate sharing stories that aren't going to bring about some sort of good vibrations for other people listening to it. But I would say if you're experiencing something like this, the best thing you can do is just like self-acceptance of what you're experiencing and maybe write it down to see if there are any patterns. Like maybe the house does have certain loud disembodied noises at certain times, or maybe there are things that can get caught on like video camera. Look at the history of the place that you're living at, but look at the history of the people that lived there, because there might be an explanation for us because
I
we
just
had
want to give a quick shout out. Hi, Eric. Nice to see you.
Eric, what? Hey, Eric. My makeup's done, by the way. I don't know if this lighting is really that well, but
Yeah, it looks cool. I like it. Mine's
I
done.
should probably put my light a little further away. It's like blasting me out with bright light, but let's see. Hold on. I'm fighting with a fan. It's kind of fun. Okay, there we go. Oh, no. There we go. Oh,
There.
kind of. Let's see. I had everything kind of sitting in different areas before I began, and I'm actually in the middle of changing this room around, but I'm glad that I realized my lighting was so harsh just now. It was good for putting on makeup, though. I needed to do that.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm going to pull up the chat so I can see you, Eric. I realized that my chat wasn't even up. Oh my gosh, I missed it. Yes, happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Ash, your makeup looks amazing.
I've got like a hair in my mouth and I can't
Look
find
at
it.
you. Oh my gosh. How do I turn my camera off? I want to see it full blast. Oh wait, I'm
God.
still on the screen though.
We got to see yours too.
Go away, Lindsay, go away. We need to. Oh, there's Ash. Wow. That's freaking cool, man. Okay, wait. How do we do this? Oh, turn your camera off.
Mine?
Yeah, and we'll see. I don't know if this is gonna work. Oh my gosh, it didn't switch. Okay, hold on. Did it do it? No, it did.
Oh. Oh, no, you went to mine, not yours. It went the opposite.
Oh,
There
here
you
we
go. Yay. Oh, I love it.
So one of the things I had difficulty with is because my skin is so white. Like you can probably do just like a light brown if you have like really fair skin like me, but you're supposed to kind of try to make a face and then outline it. Like I could definitely put more like right on this side, like right here. But yeah,
I
you
like
just,
it. I think it looks
you
really
know,
cool. It looks pretty. It's like a pretty scary.
yeah. Well, and then you're supposed to do 2 half moons on your nose. So if you guys are like at all thinking about recreating this, just like if you're in the inner circle, make sure to just go look at the playlist and you can see like if you have if you have makeup that like honestly she just kept blending and blending and blending and blending. But this is for funsies. I like this side more. than this side, for sure. Like, I feel like maybe because this side could use even more dark stuff, but this side seems to measure out well. So it's almost like there's almost like an equaling. They say your eyes are sisters, not what do they say?
Not
Sisters,
twins.
not twins. Yeah, right. Like I could clean this up though. Let's see.
I
So,
like it.
you know, when I'm doing makeup, like I'll kind of see where did I put the over here? I'll do kind of like a little bit of cleanup, but you don't want it like super, you know what I mean? You don't want it like super cleaned up. But if you wanted crisper lines or something, like I could do something like this.
I like the meds a lot.
And then you just kind of can wipe up because you're wiping away. And I noticed like if you want there to be lines, like you gotta, and you can come back through on both sides of it, and like you see you're gonna have to like have black everywhere anyways, but like it gives you more of like a line upward. Like even could even do even more than that if I wanted to. You know?
I like it. It looks neat. I like it with your eye color. It gives a good choice up against your eye color.
It's like it is kind of messy, but it's totally I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
think
a little bit messy, I think, is proper. You know what I mean? You don't want it
it's
too
supposed
perfect.
it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be
Yeah,
like that. And then you know, you come back through and you just blend and then you can kind of make these lines. What I also did too, I have to show this to you because I thought it was really cool. Is I'm gonna show this to you. This is really neat. I found this stuff online right now. It was on sale. I have to itch my nose.
I know when
And
I
then
feels like it's gonna water. I'm like, don't you do it? Don't you
okay,
do
you
it?
gotta check this out. This is from L'Oreal, and it was online, and it was on sale. I don't know if you guys can even see the sticker. I
No,
have it like on sale. Look at that.
back
Look
up
at that.
just a little bit.
I
Yeah,
don't
right
even
about
know
there.
that this has a price on it or whatever, but like,
Yeah, it's there.
let's see.
That's really pretty. Oh, I like
It's
that.
it's totally shimmery, and what you can do is you can get it on your finger. Let's see. There you go. And then you can kind of like,
I'll give it that. Like it's like highlighter.
yeah. And you're supposed to use it like a highlighter anyways, but I just put it over the black. I got this in like a day because
Oh,
they
that's a
had,
good idea to make the dark pop. Yeah, so it's
yeah,
not so
well,
like.
my skin is really white, so I was like, what else can I do to try to like get it to like,
No, I like it. That's cool.
and you just put a little bit on top of the black and it makes it kind of a shimmery thing. And like there's so much cheap makeup that you can get. Like that was only a $3 thing. I'm sure at the drugstore if you can find it, it's probably around this like $3 to $5. And then there's this elf stuff I got like on sale at, like at one of the drugstores I think was at the end aisle for Christmas. And it's just this elf like stuff that, and I think you can buy this even right now, and it's got sparkles in it. I don't know if you can tell, but like
Mine's
I
elf
just
too.
took that and did that like over my eye a little bit. That was fun.
Yeah, that's what I use for mine too, is just elf, and it's for like, when you want to like lighten underneath your eyes and stuff. I had white for that, but I hardly ever use it.
Right.
So I've been using it during the Halloween. I use this is oh my god, I can't even see. H2O proof. I can't even tell what it is.
I'm gonna switch the screen back over if I can.
Wet and Wild, just Wet and Wild, but any like liquid eyeliner would work. But the palettes I used, I got really cheap off Amazon. And this one is exotic flavors from Amazon. And I love this palette just in general because I like colors, but and then the other one I've had forever on Amazon, and these are both under $20. This one is Color Board by Beauty Glaze. So you can see what it looks like. And then you open it up, and it has all the different color boards that you can work with. So obviously I use that one, but that's just what it looks like. And then brushes, whatever.
I like that. I'm gonna do my hair real quick. I used a bunch of really old palettes that I had, and I have to show you though the new palette that I purchased, that I really like. Hold on. I don't know if there's a way for me to like get this to go away. No, there isn't. That's okay. Ah, that's what's in the way. Okay. That's totally wild. Sorry about the noises. Oh my gosh. There we go. I just got this stuff. It's pretty fun. It's from Essence. It's actually pretty affordable for like an eye color palette. Do you see this? It's a villains. It's like Essence villains, and
Oh, I love that palette. That's so cool.
I got Ursula. Wait. Oh, I need to be over here more so you guys can actually see it because I wanted to open it and show you the colors.
I like that it has a little mirror too. Look at the colors. It's so pretty.
I really like this color and this color.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous one.
Yeah, you can kind of see, you know, different colors that you can get. But yeah, they have like a dark, they have like I think it's like a Lion King, or they have some other stuff. But I thought like some of these colors were really gorgeous. Hold on, I'll just show you on my hand and what it looks like. These colors near each other. And I thought about using these today, but then I thought I don't really need to use these colors like in anything that I have, but like, can you see the like purple in the middle? Like that is like so bright to me. And you can't really see here because there's not as much blue in my like lighting to really pop it, but like it's so freaking bright.
I like it though.
Yeah, it's really, really bright, but it ends up being something that like I would wear on a regular, you know.
Well, that's what I like about all the colors. Are all things you'd actually wear.
And I didn't use as much makeup as I thought. I had all my makeup here just in case I needed to use like way more, and I didn't use as much as I normally would.
Right? I am just looking. There we go. No, that wasn't it.
Wipe the makeup off. Okay, so there's one other creepy story I wanted to share with you about my house. So I was like, you know, when you have an idea that your boyfriend is going to come hold your hand while you're sleeping because you watched Anna Avonlea with your other friend way too many times, and you're like, oh, there's this matchmaker thing that happens, and he's going to come hold your hand and give you flowers, and like there's this whole like, I don't know, you have like your Prince Charming fantasy. So I'm on the couch. I'm about like 16 and a half. I have a boyfriend, and he went to Ticketmaster to go get himself some tickets because they're going to go to the concert. And my brother was like, I'm coming too. So they left, and I was laying on the couch, and the power went out. And I was by myself, but I had work. I went to school, and I didn't really sleep. And I went to work, and so I was home, and I was on the couch, and I just crashed. I just fell asleep. And I woke up to someone holding my hand in the dark, holding my hand. Like my hand was like being cupped, and they were petting my hand, and I could see them holding my hand. And I thought, oh, that's so nice of him. That's like totally Prince Charming. He's like holding my hand, and the door opens up and people come in, and I'm so confused about how this all happens because they're gone at the time that it happens. So I'm like, was I sleeping? It was like, but that was so real. Someone was holding my hand, and so I was like, okay, I was just gonna ask. And the lights came back on all of a sudden, and I was like, I guess the power went out. And they were like, yeah, the power went out before we left. Don't you remember? And I was like, I don't really remember. They were like, we were like going out the door when the lights went off. And I went, that's so odd, when you guys left, the lights went off and I just passed out. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, wow, I just maybe needed to sleep or something, you know? And I was like, so which one of you was holding my hand? That was so sweet. And they were like, what? And the guy I was dating was like, I didn't do that. And I was like, okay. So I waited for my brother to get out of the bathroom, and he was like, we had tickets, man. The lights came back on. I was like, cool. I was like, were you holding my hand? He was like, no. I was like, that was so real to me. It couldn't have been a dream. somebody sneak
That's
in and hold
creepy.
my hand. Like I think it was that spirit that maybe, yeah. And I don't know, there were other spirits that didn't match up with some of the physical traits, I guess, of the. So there had to be a couple different kinds of spirits in the
I was gonna
house.
say there must have been a different one or something in there.
Yeah, but it was very interesting because I was always trying to figure out who was who. And still looking back, I feel like maybe those spirits were gaslighting me a little bit as to what was happening or what was going on. But I just kept my space and my distance from them because I felt like, like Patrice Maladoma, they didn't pick me. It wasn't necessarily in my energy field that they were trying to get in. There was nothing I could really offer them. They were just annoyed that I was there impeding them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd wake up and there would be spirits like at the end of my bed and hanging out in my room. So finding my own space and all of that boundary breaking was really kind of quite an experience. And I've talked to a lot of other mediums and they've gone through a lot of similar stuff,
I think it's funny how, like, as you get older and you continue to experience that, if not experience more creepier things, it's
Right,
never going to be as creepy as it was back then. Like,
right,
some of the stories we're telling, I'm like, well, Christ, we've had certain things happen to us even together, like in the apartments we live in now, while we're
right,
talking, that are like quote unquote creepier. And we're just like,
right.
like it's nothing. And it's like, oh yeah, that's blah blah behind me over there. And it's like, oh yeah, there's so and so's walking behind you right now in your kitchen. And it's like, I don't know how many times I'll be like, is that Gordon? No, Gordon's not here. Oh,
They're just
okay.
dangling
There's
about.
someone randomly walking behind you right now, just stuff like that.
It's really,
But
it is kind of like, what
and
is
the
it, like
spirits in your
Sunday,
house almost,
Wednesday Adams. What was it? Miss Adams from
yep,
the
Wednesday.
Wednesday, and then
Wednesday Pugsley.
Beetlejuice's.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
The daughter,
was she?
who the hell
What was
was
her
her name
name?
in it?
What is it? Olivia,
Olivia. Yeah,
Olivia.
I think so. Yeah,
It was
Winona
kind of
Ryder
like, I
played
just
her.
kind of, I remember we had so many weird deaths in our family at some point that it was kind of like, and it was really weird because I noticed certain people that made friends with one family member in particular, those people would die sooner. Like if I'll use myself for example. So if I befriended, let's just say, a new friend down the road, and I wanted to hang out with them, all of a sudden it was just like all about this person, and then that person dies like in a couple of months or less. Every
Oh,
single
that's
time this
weird.
person made a friend, they would die. And so it was like, don't, like, you were like, I want to be friends with you, sort of, but not really, because I don't want to. Like, I started becoming aware that my family had an intimate relationship with death, and like spirits gathering and sort of staying afterwards was just one of those pieces of death. And sometimes we leave this realm when we leave our bodies, and sometimes we stay. And if we stay, I sure hope that those consciousness, the people that I can help, are the people that we reach when we do this work, that want the help. It's just like they say, don't read for somebody who doesn't want a reading. Like, don't.
Don't fear
Don't.
the Reaper. Yep.
Yeah, don't worry about reading for people that don't want it, because they don't matter. And that might seem mean, but they don't. If they don't want that information, then why offer it to them? I was watching somebody on a live stream do mediumship readings, and he was like, okay, everybody, I'm getting a message, I'm feeling something, and I'm getting a message. And I'm thinking, when in these houses that we were living in that were haunted, did you ever have time to be like, okay, shut up, there's a spirit telling me something? No, that's not how it works. Like, he's already in the room walking around doing stuff, like scaring the bejesus out of your grandma and like doing things. Like, it was one of the, it wasn't one of those like,
I
I'm
laugh
at
because
the
my grandma
door.
probably would have been like, Frank, shut up over there.
My this wasn't specifically a haunted house sort of thing, but I remember I was at my grandma's house with her. And like, they lived out in the middle of Montana near this mountain that everybody would go to. A lot of famous people go to it to go skiing. And they live out there in this touristy kind of town. and they've been living there for quite some time. And I remember visiting, and I was excited because my dad and sister were off to do the touristy stuff, and I was going to get to hang out in my grandma's really cushy bed. I was like, this is great. But something woke me up, and I just felt like I needed to get up. Like it was like 8 in the morning, and I had to get up. Everybody was awake, and I was the last one awake. I needed to get up, needed to start the day. I get up, and nobody's awake, completely quiet, but somebody's in the kitchen cooking, and it smells like bacon. And I'm like, I can feel, when you smell bacon cooking, how there's almost like a little bit of water that comes off with the grease and it goes into the air and it's kind of foggy air. Like that's what it even looked like. And as we were as I was like coming out towards, through the hallway towards this big open living room, I realized my grandma was to the right of me shuffling along through. She was like, "Oh, you're up early." And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Do you smell that?" And I was like walking with her and I was like, "Yeah, do you smell that? What are you smelling?" And she's like, "It smells like bacon." And I was like, "Somebody's in the kitchen, Grandma, and they're making bacon." And we got so excited about the bacon, which now I don't eat bacon, but we made it around the corner. There was nobody there. It was the most disappointing moment ever. We were like, "Where's the bacon?" Like, and I looked at her and said, "Grandma, where did what just happened?" And she was like, "I don't know. Nobody's making bacon." I was like, "Okay, but what just happened? Like, does that normally happen?" And she was like, No, I've never, that's the
I've
first
had a
time."
lot of cool experiences with my grandma as an adult. Like, her mom died when she was really young,
Yeah.
and my mom said like she would catch her talking to her mom all the time as she was sewing stuff. But since
Yeah.
my grandfather passed away about 10, I think 11 years ago this year, her and I have shared like similar experiences that coincide with one another, like knocking. Like when she lives with someone, knocking stops at her house and it'll start here. And then when she lives alone, it stops here and starts at her house. And she'll wake up in the middle of the night. She wears hearing aids, can barely hear you with her hearing aids, and she takes
Right.
them out at night. But somehow at the other end of the apartment, she hears someone knocking in the middle of the night that wakes her up out of sleep. And she goes to the door and no one's there. And we both agree that we think it's my grandpa because the second she lives with
Right.
one other person, it stops. But
So when other
we've
people are
had
around, it's kind of like when she's all by herself.
it's only
That's
when
what
she
it's.
lives alone. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that
like
was
my
interesting because my grandma was like the only other person that could be making that would have maybe found that smell comforting was her father. And I said, "Don't you think your father would maybe be here today doing this?" And she was like, "Quite possibly." And I was like, "Cool."
yeah.
I
Yeah,
was
like
like,
to me,
"This is
I
what's
like
going
that.
on here. I like to know." Like I'm like,
But I think it's cool
hmm,
how, like, we had talked about it kind of like with autoimmune diseases in a sense. Say your parents have arthritis, you could end up with, say, something totally different like lupus, you know? But I
yeah,
noticed like gifts kind of run the same way. They kind of like your strong suit, even though you'll like go through experiencing different ones, you'll have a strong suit one. And
hmm,
my grandma's would be voice. My mom's is like she can see them and hear them
right.
clearly. My dad smells them. My sister hears
When
them
he
and can
smells them,
sense them.
what is he like smelling? Is he smelling perfume or like
He smells
flowers
like
or food?
he gets like, well, he's like me, like it'll be like wisps of things, so
Mm,
it can be any smell that would associate to a person. But so it can be like a cologne, perfume, sweat. It can be like, but something that you know is not your own, but because he's in construction, you know,
yeah.
there's nothing that can determine that smell. Like why would it smell like home cooked cooking or something in a house that doesn't have walls yet? You know, the walls are
Yeah.
just being put up.
Yeah.
So I got that from him for sure, because I never had it
Right.
before. I used to get like strong cravings for foods when I was around certain spirits, and then I find that spirit really liked that food, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Like I had like my one friend,
You're like,
for ages, her grandpa and I, just because grandpas, um, I really connected to her grandpa, and every night I would talk to her on the phone,
mm,
and I always craved scrambled eggs. And I'm like, and I hadn't ate eggs in years. And all of a sudden it
right.
was like, I need to eat eggs all the time. Come to find out, it was his favorite food to eat around that time of night, every night. And I'm like, bitch. So thankfully that stopped. And now I tend to get smells more so. But I'll have like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it depends. Like Amanda seems to be more she'll hear them and sense them around her. But I
Right.
don't know if she's seen them. I know she does in her mind's eye. She will see them because she's seen the ones here. And
Right.
my mom will have like full on conversations as though they're right there with her, kind of thing. She's probably the one that's the strongest out of any of us,
Right.
my mom. But she'll be like,
I can't really tell because my family doesn't admit, at least the ones that I've met. Like, there's a few of them that'll pull me to the side, and I can't say who those people are because they've like confided in me to kind of like hide it for them and like keep it a secret. But like, I've had family members come to me in the family and like suggest that they have like empathic abilities, but
yeah,
nobody's ever really admitted to the mediumship side. Inadvertently, I think they kind of like have hinted to it. Like, I know that um the experience is there and it's just waiting to be understood by those people. So it's like when they're ready for that information, they might seek that out. But I'm not going to force it on to anybody that doesn't want it. But I'm also not going to do that pedantic thing where I pretend like I'm getting a message and make it more important than it needs to be. Like, and I would say like almost any message from our loved ones is going to be important. So I feel like you know, this is one of those amazing things that we as humans have this capability to do. And I think like the people that experience it are the ones that are willing to go into that death culture, you know, where there's like in a lot of other systems, there's castes. Maybe these are the people that also went through war, like lots of war. They were the warriors because there's a lot of death around war and fighting for something and having that you know that space to live. And I feel like when I tap into a lot of the spirits are there with the land, it's like equally our responsibility to do what we can to ensure those spirits are kept sacred, because there are some spirits that stayed behind as a result of violence, and it I think can be our duty
protect the
to
space. Yeah.
to help out. Like if you have a mediumship gift, quit hiding it. Like go use it to help spirits out. But I think when we seek almost circles of people to do this, then we can be accused of being pedantic because we are working as a group, and it's about all of us coming together. And I think equally shining and doing what we need to do, but feeling that sense of livelihood's important too, especially if you're a medium, is knowing that your discernment is clarity, is, you know, what you're currently going through. It's worthy of that experience. Even when you feel like you might be tortured by spirits, I think sometimes there's always going to be those helper spirits around you that are like hanging out, that are
Hi, Michael
part
V.
of it. Hi, Michael. Ash is keeping me in the loop. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
and
when I
sometimes
do
they just
this,
need
I'm
a
looking at
song,
comment.
or you
When I'm
know,
doing
get
this,
like
I'm like, I'm just
if
trying
you
to peek
have a
and see if
house
there's
and
comments.
if you have a house and you have activity, try planting a fruit tree. You know, they can
Right?
also be all about land prosperity. So you could have a water line that keeps breaking and you think there's nothing wrong, but maybe there is something going on with the spirits in the land and they don't want you there, or they don't want that water line there, or they're trying
Or
to tell you
you've
something.
been, or you've been, there's something that you've been wanting to do to take care of the land and not been doing it, and then things start going awry around the house. Sometimes it's nice to put your land first and, show it due respect, right? Because there are creatures living and quote unquote not there,
Yeah.
that it's nice to show them a bit of respect and give them a safe home and environment that's
Yeah.
respected.
Yeah. I think you're right. I love your makeup. I'm like sitting here staring at it, like
I love
whatever
yours
she's saying
too.
is so great. I feel like I could make this smile like even more crooked and weird and like
I
but
like it though, because
I
it's
think I
not
would
like the traditional black. It's something cool, but it's almost got that, like, when someone, like when
yeah.
their hypothermia like blaze, so it's got the like cool kind of death look, but still looks pretty. I
Yeah,
like it.
hypothermia blue, like I've died.
That's what it reminded me of. It's like, but
I
it looks
feel like my
pretty.
smile is extra huge because of the
No,
line. So when I smile, it's like, ah, but it's like, it does feel like when you close it, there's supposed to be teeth. And the girl said that they're not always straight. Teeth are not always straight. Um,
right?
but it was fun to do because it sort of makes you feel a certain energy after you're done, like sort of doing the makeup. It's like, oh, I feel kind of like spooky. I feel kind of like the Crow. Like I could be like flying around with a trench coat down the street and like turning on like what's the
I feel like I
Cure.
need a candle because I feel like a
I
pumpkin.
need a
So I'm
candle. I
like,
need to walk down the street with a trench coat on,
here.
blasting the Cure. Thank you. Like, can you follow me with a boombox and we can play scary sounds on the boombox? My neighbors are gonna be like, "What's wrong?" Oh yeah, I have things we can stroll down the street on back and forth. I mean, I think like if I leave the body and I am trapped in this realm, I'm probably gonna go to places that I can go have fun. But sometimes spirits are
Better
looking
come
for
here.
places that aren't inhabited by anybody. That's why they're in your freaking
Yeah, they're
garage.
probably like, why do
Like,
these people? Well,
hello.
think about it. They're probably like, why are they moving my kitchen stuff around all the time? No wonder, like, I'll hear mine in the
Maybe
kitchen
I want to make
sometimes, and I'm
scones. Jeez
like,
Louise.
when I hear them in the kitchen, I'm like, I'll get at it. It's like I know. Usually, if I hear them, it's because I'm not taking care of things. So I'm like, all
Oh, so they're keeping you on
right.
task. That's so nice of them to keep you on task, though. I mean, like the intention
But
is
they'll
there.
do it when they want me to, like when I'm overdoing it too, right? They'll be like,
Oh.
listen up, lady, you know better. So,
I notice when I'm like really sort of feeling most relaxed, my guides will come through. Like if I'm chilling and doing something that has me sort of in that like that hypnotic space, and all of a sudden my guide will lean in and be like, "Did you know that if you do this, then that?" And I'm like, "Great." I'm like, "Wonderful." But see, it's not spooky. It's not like, ah, like, but when
it's
all of
usually something really funny where it's like, do you know if you eat bananas backwards or upside down? And it's like,
no. I don't know that. It's like it's
like,
usually
thank you
like
for the
a
pivotal
quick. It sometimes
message.
can be so quippy and nice, like a phone call from your one of your parents telling you to do something, or one of your friends being like, "Don't forget." It's like kind of sometimes like
I'm
that, but
terrible for that.
it's
Don't
not as
forget to do this.
eventful. It's not as eventful as I think one might assume. Like having, but again, then I've noticed people think it's so interesting to even just have that extra input. You know, there's some people who can't have the dialogue with themselves where they can just hear their own dialogue in their head. Like they don't have that conscience
Yeah, that
dialogue.
totally weirded me out when you mentioned that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I would not be able to survive. Like, I noticed when my
Right.
prior cat passed away, I realized just how much I talk to myself.
Right.
And talking to your guinea pig is not the same thing as when you're talking to a pet in the room with you. So, like,
Right.
and I noticed it with Rory even more so because he's with me with everything that it's like, blah, 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 blah. But not having that voice in my head, that's
Mhm.
almost constant all the time. So I can't
Right.
imagine that not being there. Like, what's going on in there then? If you're not, like, what is happening in there? I don't get it. Is it just like
I worked
tripping?
with a couple students who couldn't hear. They did not have the hearing, and they also didn't have the ability to visualize. So they couldn't hear their own selves talk, and they didn't have the ability to visualize symbols. So then we had to figure out what sensory things they could do, because sometimes your sensories aren't in the physical body, right? Like when we're talking
Could it
about
be
these
like sensing a touch
extra.
or something, like cold versus hot,
Exactly.
or like
Like the sense of
fascinating?
touch. The sense of touch is exactly what I went with. I said, "Well, what do you feel? You know, what is it that you are experiencing? Is there a sensation? Is there hot? Is there cold? Is there you know, is there a pressure?
Because
Is
I do
there
that. If I get
a
scared,
scent?"
I'll do this, and I'll wait for hands to touch here, and that's how I know I'm safe. Like, I'll wait for, if I can't like actually
Right.
see them and I feel nervous, I just ask them to come forth and do that. And the second I start feeling this, I
Right.
instantly feel
You
better.
you ask for like a cue. You ask for a cue to
That's my
be kind
cue
of
to know
just
it's
like,
them. To know it's the
yeah,
ones I know. Yeah.
that's
If
good
they
to
know
know.
me, they know to touch my forearms, like grab my forearms like that, and then I instantly feel better.
Some of us
And
are
one does
very
this.
territorial, so it's like for me having PTSD, I can't just let spirits come and touch me, but I can. They want to come into my space. I'm okay with that. And if they want to show me something, like throw an orb out, I'm cool with that. If they want to put their hand in the corner of my eye and wave it around, cool. But if you're touching me, take a step back, buddy. Don't put your hands on it.
Mine
Like
depends on the person. Yeah. Depends on who
honestly,
it
like
is.
oracally speaking, like but this has, so it requires some permission. But I remember saying to, I said to this particular person that I was working with, I just said, you know, what can you experience? And they were like, well, I feel a sense of heat when you talk about that, or I feel like
Oh.
cold, or I feel like color blue when I think of that. So it was like
Oh, weird.
there
You
were
feel the color
indicators.
blue.
They were just more subtle and they weren't the obvious ones. So when we started working on that and like coaching her through that, she started realizing, oh my gosh, I get hits all the time.
I think
So
that's actually really
people,
cool.
you know, we collect information in different ways. We're all different makeups mentally, like we have different wiring. And
Hmm.
they say the neurons that are wired together fire together. So if you want to know why you work the way you do, unravel that and figure it
Well,
out.
and I
'Cause
think understanding
yeah,
yourself too, like you said, like understanding the things you do, because someone who's
yeah,
like I get numbers, some people get, like you get a lot of song synchronicities, you know what I
right.
mean? Sometimes it works with who you are, like your personality too, the things you like. Spirits will go, okay, she does this a lot, we're gonna go through that
And they know
means.
what you're scared of too. I think if you're letting them in your space, I think that's the most important thing for me that I've learned is like it is important to understand your space. So what can you do to kind of keep your space clear is to like honestly go through the space itself and clean it, like physically clean it, like move things around, move your furniture around. If you don't want the spirits to come back in and know where they're going, move it around. Like it'll confuse them. And additionally, you can do things too with feng shui and crystals and crystal grids and things like that intuitively to set it up to kind of help yourself. If you want to reach out to Ash or I and ask us about it, you certainly can. I've put the link trees in the link, so or in the description, so you can click on them and go to our link trees and get in touch with us, and we can talk to you more about that. I've done a lot of intuitive coaching with people, one-on-one sessions as far as mediumship. And Ash, um, you do, we do a lot of the same stuff. I was going to show something special that you recently created, if you don't mind me giving you a shout out.
Sure.
Okay, everybody, all of y'all come to me with symbolism, and you're like, what does the duck mean? Well, you know, I talked about the duck earlier, but like, you guys will come to me, and I am not, unfortunately, an encyclopedia of animals. I just can't keep it all in my head. So I have these secret little tools that I use, and now I have another secret little tool, which isn't going to be secret for very long because I'm going to show you guys. But this is honestly what I use right now for my animal guidance. It's called animal symbolism, and it is by yours truly. Where's the oh, here it is. I was like, where's the name at? I can't find it. It's right in front of me. It's by Ash Falls, everybody. Isn't that cool? So animal symbolism, and then you can go to the duck. Let's go to the duck, and then I'll show you guys what you'll see. And they can get this on Amazon, Ash.
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Oh, there's so many good ones I want to stop at though. Um, the duck. Oh my god! I keep opening it up to the duck. I hope you don't mind me just showing your book.
I don't care.
Look at this, dude. She drew that. This is an artist. She's an illustrator and an author. Hello, my gosh! And it gives you all the info that you need on the duck. So it's like this to me gives me some direction, thankfully, in regards to like animals. Like I have a website, and a lot of the websites I used to use are gone. So the old world information that had a lot to do with this stuff is gone, and you've been able to encapsulate a lot of the things that I've learned, plus a ton more. There's a lot of history in this book that you put in there. How long did
Well, I
it take you
wanted,
to create this
um, well,
magical masterpiece?
thanks, sweetie. Um, I found like the
Oh
first
yeah.
time I did it, it didn't take as long because it was just sort of the symbolism, but I wanted to talk about like key features of each animal and then actually talk about any mythologies behind, you know, different cultures and stuff and what they believed it to be. So, oh God, this,
I
thank you.
love that your
It's so
pictures
weird.
on there is so great. It's just so fun to show everybody your work. Like you've created some really amazing
But doing this work, a lot of the animal decks that you buy and stuff have like 16 to 25 roughly. And I was like, I don't want to buy like 50,000 different decks or like
Look at
books.
this.
The books, like a lot of the times, the symbolism didn't make any sense. And a
Yeah.
lot of times they didn't have all the information. Like they wouldn't have mythologies or they wouldn't have the zodiac information. So I wanted a book that had like, well, this one has almost 200 animals, has the Celtic, Native American zodiac, Chinese zodiac, Western zodiac, Amakuas,
Yeah.
for the Amakua animals, obviously.
You mentioned different cultures and religions, like, and there's a
Mhm.
few parts of this book where I was like Egyptians, Celts, Romans, Saxons, ancient Greeks, and you talk about even the Quran, Celts, Scottish. I mean, everything that I probably read a couple of those, but everything that you put in here is like it's like multicultural. It's like, and I have to say, it's very cultural appreciative versus like appropriative, because I feel like
Well,
people need to
that was
hear that you've
important
done
to
your
me.
research. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really important to me because I like, to me, every culture, unless you are raised in it, you don't really ever fully get it. So it was like trying to show a level of respect
Right.
when no matter what I do, I'm not gonna fully get it. So I was trying to
Right.
hold like, as much respect as I could. But to me, people need to understand that like, the ladybug in one culture means something totally different in another. And for you, it may
Yeah,
it
it
may mean
does.
something, you gotta work with like what resonates for you, right? So and
I knew so many
sometimes
people who loved the butterfly and they'd get these tattoos. And when I would say, "Oh, Dia de los Muertos," and people would say, "What are you talking about?" I'd be like, the culture based on like some of the monarch goddess in
Mhm.
regards to she's, if you guys know this, the monarchs fly down to South America, Mexico every year. Like they
Which
do
is
a
why
they
I
do
did
a
this, because
mating.
I was trying to
Yeah.
decide, and when you told me that, I was like, okay, well then I'll do that for
You
my
did the
thing.
monarch. You're
Mhm.
so good at it too. It's like I was trying to figure out, looking at the camera, which side of my face I was actually touching. Uh, like you had to.
That's what. Yeah, I didn't use that.
They
I was
go there
like,
to
I get
mate,
it
and that's
here.
also the same time. That's a couple days after us that we celebrate Halloween. But they're selling. They're celebrating the Day of the Dead, and they go to the graves and they play music and they offer things, their presence and their energy to those who have died, whether it's grandma or. And there's cultures all over the world that have, death culture in it, and this is, I love, is so appreciative of transformation, life after death, and continuing on.
It's
So it's like,
celebrating it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not just mourning. Like what I loved, even though I know a lot of
This,
places in Mississippi have now kind of made it not allowed, but like people will
right.
bring offerings to their loved ones' gravesides and stuff, and like honor them and have dinner with them. Michael says, "I'm fascinated with the Day of the Dead and the afterlife,"
Yes. I am
and
fascinated by the afterlife as well because, you see a man walking down the street with pieces of his arms and his legs removed, and he's still very aware and conscious. And I thought, this is so interesting that, as a child, and even to this day, that like when we leave our bodies, that like our consciousness and our energy still moves forward and we can still experience each other. Like I would think, out of this entire universe, why wouldn't we experience other human spirits if we are most like that human spirit in like our needs
yep,
or wants or desires? And so of course they would seek us out, and why not? I feel like a lot of us might be afraid of it, but then they say is the time of the year where the dead can reach us the most. It's like that layer, that veil they talk about is the thinnest.
Halloween. Yep, yeah, because we're
Yeah.
heading now, which works too with obviously Day of the Dead, which I love. Is that the first day is like for the adults, as far as I'm
Yeah.
aware, and then the second day is for the children, which I think is really beautiful. But
Mm.
it's kind of that, we're heading into the opposite end of Beltane, and now instead
Yeah.
of us bringing everything out to pasture to grow and harvest and
I love that
reap
you keep
our
track of these things for
everything.
us. She's like our time. She honestly is like a timekeeper though, because like, like I'm like, what day is it again? When she's telling me things, like it's like when somebody comes up to me and they're like, it's Beltane. I'm
Well,
like,
it's kind of changed because
what?
like, but
Day of
like
the Dead is
Samhain
next
is, we're going into
Thursday.
the winter time now, right? And now like it's the kind, during Greek mythology, Persephone, you know,
Oh,
she's out looking, she's
taken by
gone back into
Hades.
Hades. Yep,
She
she's
got
gone into
sucked into this
Hades.
love affair that just won't stop.
And Demeter, her mother, gets so distraught while she's away from her daughter that,
She
everything dies
dissociates
away.
from
And
doing her work and just doesn't care
yeah,
anymore
she's like,
because
she acts like a
she has
child
empty
and is
nest
like,
syndrome.
I'm not doing this.
She has empty nest syndrome. She's like, oh, like, yeah,
Hey,
that's.
she did good though. At least she was willing to do halfsies with
Hey, you guys, I'm
Hades.
gonna be
So
really depressed this season, so I'll get you on the flip side of spring, all right? Today is not
I
the
like the
day,
cold.
neither is.
So
But it reminds me of the bear going to sleep, hibernation. When you're a kid, they tell you things in like the timing in these stories. So the bear goes and hibernates until he comes out in the spring and the ice is melting, and like that's the story that you're told. But like when you have I think what I've learned most about all of these cultures coming together is that I have an opportunity to create the best life right now by asking for the things that I want or need, and possibly having those things manifest, materialize in this reality and experience. And it is not a physical thing. Sometimes it might be the sense of peace in my mind, but that there are spirits that want us to experience good things, and so they'll be contributing towards that, empowering towards that. And some spirits are there to deplete, so I feel like that's the main discernment, I would say, is just let your
like
energy
people.
lead in. Yeah,
Yeah.
follow your energy. Approach things with energy. What does it feel like to you? I mean, like if there is a door, what's behind door number one, and there's a spirit behind door number one, and your gut instinct says, "Don't open that door. What are you doing? Don't open that door. What are you doing? Like, do you really need me to come in and say what your intuition is already saying?" Most of the time, people are like, "No, no, I know." But some of us have, our families have like worked in that death cast before, and go back 100 years, 200 years. Where was your family? Like, what did they go through? If you are somebody that comes from that culture, it's in your genes. You'll find it. It's just like Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. you know. Um,
Michael says that I think that older cultures were closer to an understanding of how the dead
yeah.
remains in a specific realm until they're no longer remembered. I agree with that. Enabling them to help us from the other side when we celebrate them in the land of the living. Ooh, I like that.
See,
It's
and it was
true
it.
though.
Yeah, it was like
I think
there
we
were.
glorify it too much now. Like it's too much of a like, oh, we gotta prettify it, and I don't like it. They take beautiful history and real culture, and sometimes not good ones, and bastardize it to suit
Well, I
their
think two people
ignorance.
try to fit the other dimension into this one, and it's not. It's the other way around. Like what he's saying, it isn't
Mhm.
about just us in our dimension. There are other dimensions that are bigger, greater, and have other things floating around in them that we're only becoming aware of, and sometimes through dreams or daily movements. But to know that, I believe that 100% that they do come to help, because even as a child, I saw spirits trying to help me, and I didn't always want their help. Like, don't touch me, I don't know who you are. What the heck? Why are you covered in blood? Things like this is but they're very real. Like I feel like sometimes when I see TV and I see like the portrayals of it, it's very cleaned up. It's like missing the grit of what death really is. And so I think it's important. But I really did like the way that Egyptians would have, they in a lot of cultures, this where you would build like these monuments for the dead, so that you
Mhm.
go there, and it kind of acted like the lobby of a way to reconnect with the afterlife. So you go to the lobby and you're like, ding, I'm going to wait for floor number 15 to go up to floor number 15 to hang out. But in this case, they would go to the place that was decorated, that the bodies were at, that the tomb was at. And somehow that acted as a gateway to the other side. You could go talk to those people who had died because they were on the other side, somehow still alive with all of the things that you gave them. And they wanted to hear what you had to say, whether you were telling them about what was going on the side, or you were seeking their wisdom or their knowledge. Like, it was all this like respectful system. Now, I mean, I have to say, I've seen so many people be respectful of the dead here, but there has been a lot of death where there has been unjust and a lot of pain in the world for these spirits. So it's like, if we can help them move on and become one of those elders, those elders on the other side that want to, like, that's where I kind of feel like I come in a little bit. And I feel like it's like, if there is something we can do to alleviate suffering to help that spirit move forward, they might be more of a useful spirit on the other side. And who's to say what that other side really is? Like, we kind of talk about it like we're saying the word there, but do I really know 100%? I can only say from the feeling of what that energy is, like that it's that.
Yeah.
And for everybody, that it might be a little bit different. That culture might be a little bit different. But what I do notice is like spirits from the old cultures will still come forward and talk to the people of the new cultures, because they want to make that connection and that impact. So whether they're here or there, wherever that is, it's like trusting that instinct within yourself to know. And I love the idea that that we are absolving and getting rid of the physical when we go into where we go next, and that it's just a natural process that we've done a billion times before. Who knows,
We
maybe you
carry
were
our history forward in a sense because our history is literally in our DNA. It's part of who we are.
like
And
we
I
could
think
have
it's
been
recognizing that.
we could have been ghosts before this lifetime, and we maybe wandered the earth for 100 years, and you didn't live a life anywhere other than here, and you're just done. Maybe you've lived like so many lifetimes. And I've talked to a lot of people that have been through a lot. Like, they're in this body, they're saying, I've been through so much in this lifetime, and I know it correlates with things that went on in other spaces and times that I was in. And I want to live better. I want to live and step out of those old patterns and come into the now. And what does that mean? Like, I know, like, I was just talking to Ash the other day about the Habsburg Empire in Austria, Vienna, Austria, or whatever. Right.
Oh
They
no,
just
he's
disappeared. Like they just went away, like Rory did. They just faded away. And so the only information that I can seem to figure out about some of these people is honestly by just talking to spirit and like reading their stories and trying to understand where they came from and what was going on at that time and the choices that maybe that some of them made. And I think it's really interesting. It's like in time, if they want to make, if the people in the world, the humans that are here want to make things go away, they do. They'll just farm right over the old communities, and then the old
I
communities
think
are literally
there's a
buried underneath
lot,
all
and
of
you know
that.
what's funny though about that is
It's
that
wild.
we kind of realize that a lot of, like, say whoever's coming forward will take
Mm.
that knowledge and try to bury it, right, or make it look bad or make them just look victorious, right? But the funny
Mm.
thing is that some of the biggest known players in the game of doing that were known for, trying to hide information and try to manipulate what was known about certain cultures, has been some of the greatest assets to
Mm.
uncovering the true history, because
Right.
they kept the information. So guess
They
what? We're
did.
now uncovering it, and we're finding the original information
It's all
that we
there.
wouldn't have had if they hadn't taken it to begin with. Yeah, so if
Dig
they hadn't
everything
tried to
up.
hide it, if they
There's a
hadn't tried
potential
to hide
boat
it,
buried here. Dig it up. I've just like been watching
yeah.
this thing called Time Team on here on YouTube, Michael. You gotta definitely look up this thing called Time Team. And I think like mostly that's what I describe to people as when I'm experiencing my mediumship. I think Ash kind of gets that sense of timelessness, right? When it, like somebody's like, "Oh, you're like late." You're like, "What day is it?" Like what day is it? What time is it? I'm late? Oh no, you're a day early. Okay. So like it's really interesting how quickly like the perception of things switch around, but I'm just like this in this moment, in this moment. Michael wrote something. He said, what was the last one we read, Ash? Was it I need
Yeah.
to have my reading glasses.
Yeah, was the last one.
Oh, okay. Did he say something about Egyptians though? Wait, hold on. I think the older cultures enabling. Oh, I think the Egyptians were a death cult.
Yes.
Did we
Time
read?
Team Classics, yes.
Did we read that? Oh, we read that. They understood this and used mummifications to trap their souls in the astral.
Oh, I didn't even
Wow.
see that. That's
Oh, I
weird.
love
I don't even see
building
that on there.
temples to the dead. They communicated with them. Time
Oh,
Team
weird. I don't
classics.
even see that.
Yeah,
I don't even see that
that's it.
comment.
You basically are gonna be dorking out with me, Michael, like on this.
Can
I don't know.
you
So
can you
good.
read the Egyptian comment to me, because it's not there?
Oh yeah, yeah. 1143. He says, I think the Egyptians were a death cult. They understood this and used mummifications to trap their souls in the astral, building temples to the dead, which totally are those pyramids. They
Mm-hmm.
communicated with them. Yes, that's exactly the death cult. It because death was so important to them, right? Like the death was the opportunity to become the butterfly or more or less take that transformational. And Ash knows this a little better than I do. Ash, isn't it like the weight of the feather? Like your soul is,
Your
and you
heart,
show up
your
in
heart, your heart against the weight of a feather.
in front of all
Yeah.
these judges, and they're all there to judge you. Your heart against the weight of a feather. Like you have to be lighthearted when you die. That's what my first thought was, and then I went, oh, I get it. Like you've lived your life in such a way that you don't feel like stuck by it.
But they had a lot of, like, astrological information, or astronomy wise. They knew a lot of what was going on in space long before we did. Not just the Egyptians, but let's face it, they are the ones that are kind of most known for it, like having buildings set up so that
Right.
when, like, certain times of year, the sun aligns right with whatever, with whatever different tombs and stuff. But a
Mm.
lot of times, like, the tombs are ways to buy themselves into the dead, like into the afterlife, so that they could be among the pharaohs and stuff like that and consider themselves gods. And then later on, we had people like Cleopatra who, they actually considered themselves to be pharaoh, like to be gods and goddesses.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I almost wonder, like you and I have discussed this before, but I almost feel like that's how a lot of gods and goddesses came from, was, leaders or people who are really revered in their areas were kind of put to that godlike status, or put themselves to that. Because we know
Right.
even Alexander the Great did that. So
I feel like that's like I feel like the sometimes the best part of dying was this like afterlife. Like when with Buddhism it's the bardo. You die and they come, you might be dying or something, but they come and they do the bardo prayer, and then you die and they continue to do the Bardo prayer over your body. And then they live in such a rocky place that they don't bury their bodies. They do something called sky
Yeah.
burial. And
Yeah.
the vultures come and eat the body, the flesh off the bones. And they take those bones and they turn them into jewelry. So
I think that's beautiful, though, to be honest with you. Like, we do it with ashes, putting it in jewelry and whatnot. And I think it's a beautiful way to pay homage. What I wonder, though, is as the spirits, how much were they like, oh, like when they got,
I
crossed
think that
over,
he
died,
said,
whatever,
I met a Buddhist monk who was like in Tibet, and he said that it's like everyone, you go out of the body and you're now in Bardo, you're in a place where it's almost like a certain amount of days. I think like 40, I might be wrong, 48 days or 41 days or something, but you go into this space where you come out on the other side to then be reincarnated again. And you might be going into that space and facing off with dragons or demons or something, so you have to take everything that you learned in this life to then defeat them, to then reincarnate. So the Bardo, but it's also about finding peace, and that ultimately that Bardo, that reincarnation, isn't just to be dumped back into a human body, but that your consciousness has decided it's come to this space where it's been able to do the transformation. The Book of the Dead, yes. Yes, I read that. The Book of the Dead. Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's good. It's good. Yes. I read that. And the cultures are really quite interesting. Like when I talked about sky burial, I was like, this sounds really disgusting. And I'm like, I don't mean this from like to say the culture is disgusting. I just feel like I would be like going, oh my God. Because I just have never seen it. And it was so sweet of him. He was like, it's okay. He was so worried about my consciousness being disturbed by this. He was like, it's okay, they're dead. And I was like, yes, I know they're dead. And he says they can't feel it. And I was like, I just couldn't watch it. He's like, it's very quick, very fast. And I was like, and this is, if you meet people from Tibet, they're like, they don't give up on the
it's just
conversation like
what's
ever.
normal. Yeah, it's just what's
So
normal.
he said, Lindsay, this is part of the culture. And I was like, I guess I could watch it. Would you be there?
See,
And
to
he was like,
me,
yeah, I
that
could be
makes
there. I was like,
more that makes more sense than
right.
us who like will sit there and have our dead like look at Queen Elizabeth. She sat there in a coffin for like 2.5 weeks, stinking up the place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's gross. It's like that's all I thought. I'm like, she still isn't buried yet.
She's probably the best well-preserved woman in this
But you know what
world
I'm
right
saying? Like
now.
we take all our guts out, stuff it full of like weird preservatives. Like we do
Yeah.
the weirdest things to our dead when really it was just to make sure they were actually dead. Awake was to make sure they weren't awake. It wasn't to stuff them and keep them and paint them up and go, "Hi, Grandma, I miss you." Like when Grandma doesn't look like Grandma anymore, So
Right.
it's like to me that's morbid. Do you know what the
Right.
Norse do? What I thought was really funny. Well, it's not, but it is. There's a spirit called the Drugger, which is kind of like the Walking Dead in a sense. And if say you pass away and your descendants don't pay homage to you in a way that you like or show respect, the Drugger will come back to the homestead. So they'll do things to prevent it from being able to come back. So they had spirit doors that could only be
Right.
by feet first, the spirit go out the door, or they would literally take the dead person and crush their legs and sew their legs and feet together so that when they rise up from the dead, they can't come back
You
to
put a
the
little bit of
house.
fear of like zombies into the people that are currently existing, and every single one of them will tell you how they would handle a zombie. Like I feel like people have come to understanding and thinking like a zombie would be more realistic and I think it honestly comes from a real fear, like in the conscious
Oh yeah,
conscious
they
mind and the
believed it.
consciousness. It's like
Yeah.
there is something where if that were to come back and be animated, it would be wrong. I mean, just look at some of the funerals where people were pronounced dead, and then they woke up at the funeral, and everybody was like,
Well,
"Oh my
remember the whole
God."
idea of vampires, like all the people in Europe who were, there's still to this day, there are bells by people's gravesides. So that way, if they woke up within a certain amount of time, they could ring the bell and someone could dig them out.
Wow. See, if I heard that
I'd
bell
rather
ringing, the
awake.
first
I'd
thought
rather
I would
awake to
have
make
is
sure.
somebody is messing with the bell at the door. Like I wouldn't think, yeah. I would think
Could
because
you
spirits are
imagine?
so they're after seeing what spirits can do, like I believe that they can do just about anything.
Yeah, but could you imagine being the person waking up and you're like, man, it's cramped in here. And all of a sudden you realize it's like, oh, no. I do the weird,
I would have
creepy
probably been running out
hick
there and being
thing.
like, I'm going to come get you. We need to dig right here. This person's still alive.
Until they stake
Yeah.
you thinking you're a vampire, right? There's that too.
And I
A
thought
lot
that
of
it was,
times
yeah.
if they heard the bell, that would mean that it was a vampire waking up, and then they'd have to be ready to stake you when you came out.
Oh, right,
So
right.
just
in case.
depending on where you were.
I would be more
Yeah.
afraid of infectious disease because that's what I was raised in my family to be more afraid of. like I'd be like, did you
I'd
have
be
an
more afraid
infectious
of the
disease
living
before
than
you
the
got
dead
up in
people.
here? I'd be coming to rescue you like in ET with a hazmat suit. I'll wear the hazmat
Right?
suit. It'll be very
Like, we're
very
all
Gnostic,
scared of
like
the dead people, but we're running around staking people and crushing their legs and like
right.
mummifying them,
The
but
fear
we're the
is
normal
real.
ones.
I don't
Yeah.
think that I've ever seen, well, anything is possible, I suppose, right? Like, if I can take the plasma that we all exist in and manipulate it, then I can manipulate what you see and experience, which is truly what alchemy is. And I think, like, if death, from what I understand, is really sort of this alchemy from the physical into energy, any energy could choose to want to stay and stick around, and like that could be a curse. It's like different semantics for different things in different cultures, but from what I understand, it's most important for those spirits before they go to be at peace. And like, if I can help with that, like one of the things that I would that I've done that I think finds most peace in my heart and soul is when I get to help people who are crossing or they're facing off with fears of death, because I get to talk to them and tell them about, what not to be like, what to look forward to. It's like I get this divine fun task of being like, it's so great when you're out of your body, you don't have to worry about this or that. And they just look so relieved, like, oh my gosh, the physical reality can become quite a burden on us. I think like the main goal for me is in the afterlife, if there is a moment where your heart is feathered against, or weathered against a feather, put weighed against a feather, the weight of a feather, I would hope that my heart would be light enough to pass, that I wouldn't let this physical or earthly life, elude me to thinking that like it's just a physical life and that's it. Now there's so much more that we just get used to living with that we don't explain, that I think maybe deserves some of our attention and energy. It's easy to turn the phone on and the TV on and like hang out and do that, but when you like stop and question some things on how they really are, it's kind of interesting. You take some of the extra things that people put sensorially in their way and you open up their senses, and sometimes they experience so much, and it's almost this thing that they're using the TV to get out of having those experiences. So when you sit alone, that's what I would probably say to most people, is just sit alone and listen. Like sometimes people think, oh, I am meditating when I sit alone, or I'm doing my artwork. It's like, without having anything in your mind, without thinking I'm doing this or that, it's just to sit there and listen and see if there's any spirits that do want to talk. I think that they'll make contact with you. You'll hear them, you'll feel them something, but you have to turn the electronics off because
You gotta listen.
it takes your guard. It takes your focus somewhere else, takes your intention away, and it keeps you from experiencing that other consciousness.
But I do think that they channel through us too. Like you'll see it even with writers or like saying your dreams, art, whatever. I think they do channel through that too. But I still think that's because during that process we're in a state of observation, and that's why they're able to come through.
He says, "Yikes! F that buried alive. I just want to make my molecules dissipate when I die."
Or
like
Brad Pitt
wrestling compared to that. I was thinking Aquamation. I follow a lot of morticians and stuff on YouTube and on Instagram, and they have something called Aquamation now. Instead of cremating yourself and lighting yourself on like in flames and becoming ashes, which I just like the idea of something spread it. And that's light and airy, and this is a nice product. I could take this part of Lindsay and spread her out over here, but like the whole body, and like the Aquamation in me I thought was like so gross at first, but then I thought about it and I went, that's really quite wonderful, because they're left with almost like a sand. It's like a Lindsay sand that would be left over from the whole process, and the rest of it, instead of creating the off gassing pollution and stuff from being cremated, you're actually just being washed away. And
that I like the fact that it's
there's natural things that they can put on you that will make that happen, that process happen, so that you don't have to use a ton of chemicals. And it, I think, is probably a lot better for the planet from what I've heard. So they're trying to get people into aquamation even more for their the final burial moments.
I
But
have family that wants to do it, great aunts and uncles, which I thought was really cool that they'd be even open to it. I'm of the idea that I can't afford to have the choice to make,
I'm
so
still thinking of a bear wrestling Brad Pitt.
I just say do whatever you want. I don't care. At that point, I ain't gonna be there. So
Yeah, no, I'm still imagining this bear wrestling Brad Pitt while you were talking. Like that, did you know like Evita Peron, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, that song? Um, her body, after she died, they put it on display and she was so well preserved.
I
But
just think that's disrespectful to me to do
and that
that.
was because her husband put her on display, and the person who came in that took over office for like 16 years hid her body from him. Like, what a guy. And like he was like, I'm gonna take your wife's body and put her over here. And he like buried her somewhere. And this
But
guy
we
got
do
her
that.
back and put her body back on display for a while before they finally laid her to rest. But this
I
lady
just
had been
don't.
all
I think it's
over the place.
disrespectful. Yeah, like I mean, you see, like I understand the Egyptian mummies, for
Like,
instance, grave robbers. You really don't have much of a choice unless you can, to keep them where they were originally rested. What?
yeah. No, he's
People are
talking about
weird.
the movie Legend
Legends
of
of the
the
Fall.
Fall.
Yeah,
Brad Pitt, I know. I was remembering what movie it was
but
because
there's
A River Runs Through It
mummies.
was, I think, one with him in it too that came out right after that, and it was about
Yep.
Montana as well.
But there's mummies to this day that are like put up like on display in Las Vegas, and I just think that's disrespectful. I'm sure that wasn't
I
that guy's
I wouldn't
wish.
mind because my body, my spirit's gonna be moved on. I'm thinking of it like a car. Like if you want to take my body and like do stuff with it, I'm cool with that. Like I honestly don't mind if it makes people feel a sense of peace. Like that's great. But I mean, I think all of us want to know that we're being respected in those final, like wherever we're going. And I always thought it would be so interesting to be one of those displays where people are learning about the human body. Have you seen that exhibit? It's like people have actually given their bodies to science so that people can learn. And I think that this was such an issue at some point, like people showing their bodies. And I think, how dare you take your skin off and show me your bicep muscle? And we're only supposed to see it with skin on. So I think that's a really great. I've always wanted to see through people and like look inside of them and see their, like, have x-ray vision. As a kid, I would always be imagining like what's on the other side of your cheekbone, like, and then what's on the other
Well,
side of
wasn't
that,
it
and
Leonardo
go
da
in further.
Vinci? Leonardo da Vinci, they said he did, now whether it's true or not, that he did such a beautiful job at like capturing the human form that
Yeah.
he actually stole cadavers to like learn. Yeah, like to me, I don't know, I think that's really fascinating. It's
Still
like
my cadaver. I don't mind. I feel like, and that's why we started
it wouldn't
donating our
bother
bodies.
me. Like to me, someone
Right.
who like could help with something like that, like to me, I think that's really cool. Now, the H Holmes of the world who would sell my dead body to like schools, I don't like that. But if you want to use me for art or like for science, that's really cool to me.
Just don't take my eyelids off. That's all I ask. Just leave them there. Like, I need to
No
be able to.
making lampshades out of my skin, preferably.
I think that these are real fears, like, of our human, like what's gonna happen. But I always liked the visual of in Varanasi where they have these pyres of people's bodies and they're on fire next to the Ganga, which represents the mother, and you're being like taken care of by this. And I often, with my, like, whenever I have an animal die now, or if it's an animal or person, I have like a ceremony that I do that I've just sort of channeled through me. And so when I have like the body itself, I think that there's still a process of that energy being released, and that there's like a way to almost cradle that body before it's dissolved. It's almost like the way that the Buddhists take care of the body before they do sky burial. It's like there's like a sacredness to that being still, that's still, to me, I feel like that their spirit is waiting to see, like wherever they're at, that they're waiting to see themselves be respected and loved in that way. So I feel like the
And
best way to
loved, yeah.
approach it is through that. And I think the cultures I have the most respect for are the ones that do use that love, you know?
I
It's
think
about that
that
love for the next.
I think that we should dedicate this live to Maverick. What do you think?
Oh, yes. I have to put that. I'll have to put that. This is dedicated to Maverick in the description. I think that would be
Hmm.
really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. We have a doggy friend on the other side today. So we got to send some good vibes up to Maverick, everybody. Send Maverick some. He just recently left his body behind. He was a dog. He had a choice today to leave his body or stay, and his family had to make the decision to help him out of his body because it was hurting. So, you know, it I think is really interesting, like the whole idea of permanence in the physical. There's no longer that physical thing there. It's not that that spirit or that person is gone. It's just that they've transformed. They've changed their energy. It's just, and that we don't have a lot of us don't have the capability to see that anymore unless we practice it. But we could practice it. It's there. It's a gift that we have. It's just asleep and dormant in a lot of us because we are doing other things with our energy and our focus and our attention. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Ash, thank you so much for encouraging me to do the live with you today and like doing all of this and talking about death. And it was really fun.
Yeah, it was a
And
lot of fun.
I can't believe you mentioned the bear. Michael is so intuitive. Like the fact that Legends of the Fall was my favorite movie as a teenager. It's such a huge weird
I had a
crush
big
on
Legends of
Brad Pitt.
I had a Legends of the Fall poster in my bedroom.
Oh, a
That's
girlfriend of mine
as
gave
bad.
me a sticker that I put on a cassette boombox, and I put it on there so that when I would listen to my Stone Temple Pilots tape, Brad Pitt would be looking back at me and being like,
See,
"Such
I
an
was never a
amazing
Brad Pitt
singer."
fan. I was never a Brad Pitt girl. I'd be like, I don't. No offense,
I
Brad
don't know
Pitt, just
why I
not.
liked him. It was those movies.
I was
I
a
was
Bruce
like, I
Willis
watched
girl.
those
Always
movies,
have
and
been. I was Bruce Willis. Brad Pitt, I was like, don't really get it. It's weird. I
I
just.
I think part of it was like he was Cowboy Take Me Away. Cowboy Take Me Away. That's the Dixie Chick song. It was like I think every girl's dream to have Brad Pitt be a cowboy and take me to the countryside away from all of this. But I think that it was an interesting movie, like nonetheless. It kind of reminded me of my family, like not Brad Pitt specifically, but the Anthony Hopkins was in that movie.
Yes,
And
I
you
love
love
Anthony
him, and
Hopkins.
he was the daddy, and he at the end of the movie had like, one eye was kind of messed up, and he was hobbling around with his big old, like, he looked like a buffalo in the movie at some point. He looked like he was maybe wearing I don't know, he was wearing maybe some sort of like fur. But my family had are both sides of my family are from Montana, so the mountains. So a lot of them would have furs and stuff just dangling off their banisters, and I'd be like, "What is this?" Or they'd have a fridge for all of the meat that they would have, and I was just like, "What a strange lifestyle this is." But now I see it, and I'm like, "They're living out in
Survival.
nature, having a good time. Why
Yep.
not?" Like, yeah, and, there's a whole respect there, and I see that. It seems like a lot of the people that were comfortable with death in my family also had seen a lot of war and stuff. So yeah. I think for me right
Oh,
now, I've been focused on like the cultural like remembrance of things in my family, like to help us move forward. Generational, whether you call it breaking generational curses, for me, it's like going back in the past and learning the stories of the people that have created this genetically. And then after I learn that, is to kind of see, were they fully honored? Is there something
mhm.
I can do to honor them now, to like in remembrance of them, just so that I feel
Well,
like
I think it
that part
honors
of me is
ourselves
at
more
peace.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that part of
Michael.
them is me now.
Michael says, "Remember Witches of Eastwick? I want to watch it. They are actually remaking that movie,
They
and
are?
it's oh yeah, yep. They are remaking that movie, so I am excited for it.
Oh
And
my
it's going to
God.
be. It's not going to be the original ones.
Oh.
It's going to be their kids that do it.
Oh,
So
oh, really? Okay,
mhm, yeah,
I couldn't imagine that, but their kids are doing it.
yeah.
And that would have been, what's her name? Oh, wait, I want to say Drew Barrymore, but that is not that lady.
Kay
Kate
Hudson.
Hudson? Kate
Mhm.
Hudson. And then,
Oh, I can't remember her name. She
why do I want
drives
to
me.
call her Susan Sarandon?
No,
No,
that's the actress, the original
the
one.
other one that was in there. I can't remember. I'm so sorry, Miss Amazing Actress. I have watched
From
that
the
movie so
devil,
many
from
times.
the
It was
Devil
so good.
Wears Prada. Yeah,
Yes. I
yeah.
love Meryl Streep,
Meryl Streep. Yeah, Cher's in
right?
it too. Yep,
Yeah,
Cher's in
Meryl
it.
Streep. Yeah,
I'm
Meryl Streep was
interested to see who they'll cast for the man though, because
mm.
he was older. To me, he seemed older than the women at the time, but really, I don't know if he was. Like, I think now looking back, he's probably about the same age. But I'm wondering who they'll cast because I don't think anyone can beat him. So we'll see. We'll
Is
see
this
how they
also
do
where she
it.
falls down the stairs and her legs are all twisted and stuff and
And
she's
then
like dead, but
there's
she
like the
doesn't know
big
she's dead?
hole in her guts in the
Ah,
other
oh my
one.
gosh, that was so cool. I forgot all about these scenes. They're coming back to me. Cher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
Cher. There's so many good movies they need to redo, like or just bring back. I think I think that they were amazing and creepy, like The Shining. It was so
Well,
creepy.
that one's been redone though, so I don't know if they'll
I feel
redo
like
it
they should make
again.
it more realistic. They definitely need to visit the house, like the production crew, visit the house that I used to live at, like, and do it there. Like whatever you, and then do it there. Like you'll have enough. Like you don't have to pay for the extra. You go to the real haunted locations, and I like the spooky
Problem
things.
with the horror stories is that nowadays, even though we have better technology, it's too like it's lost that old school creepy vibe, right? That the old
Oh well, our
videos
attention
had.
spans have gotten shorter. So,
Oh, the rooster.
ahooga.
Death becomes her. That's right. Death becomes her. That's right.
Oh, that's because
Witches
there's
of
so many good ones.
Eastwick. Is that the
So many,
one?
so many.
Now I'm thinking witches. I need to look this up. Hold on. I know that movie. Okay, Witches of Eastwick.
Mm.
I've got myself all over the place. Witches of
Yeah.
Eastwick. There it
Yeah,
is.
The Shining was like the house that we were talking about, like hauntings
Oh
and
yeah,
ghost
that
stories
is
and
the
stuff.
Witches of
And
Eastwick. Yep.
yeah, there was the space that I used to live in was very much like The Shining. Like people would come in there and after a while lose their mind. Like they would just start to like lose touch of reality.
Yeah, Witches of Eastwick was with
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon, Cher, and oh Michelle Pfeiffer. So I think what I'm thinking of the same. I'm thinking Jack Nicholson in the other one too. Death Becomes Her is with the other two, and Death Becomes Her
Mm.
is the one that they're redoing.
Oh my gosh.
That was
It'll
like,
be, it'll
yep,
be fun. There were so many,
Meryl
like, there were
Streep.
so many build up scenes to like things happening that I remembered being like, oh my gosh, I can't watch this. There's
Oh,
always got
it's
to be like if I'm
not.
watching a scary movie, somebody has to be right next to me so that I can like
Shame on me. It's Bruce Willis in Death Becomes Her. I did not realize that. That's the one they're
You
redoing.
want to know
But
what's great about that? You were not going to let that one go until you figured out who the guy was because you were like, who was the guy? And it was because it
yes.
was him.
Well, I
You
was thinking
knew.
Jack Nicholson. I'd slap myself if I didn't feel like it. But that's just shameful that I didn't know that. Even he said in the comments too. He's like, "That's a
Thank
Bruce.
you.
I
Thank
should know
you.
better. I should know that." Hello, beautiful. What are you doing?
He's here. You gonna be here. You're gonna come hang out. She brought me her toy. She's like, yes.
Aw. I was like, is that her bone? Rory's over there. Well,
She
he
has a
was.
ducky. She brought a duck. How many times does the duck and the bear have to come up in a one broadcast? See, she
I don't
brought her
know where
duck.
Rory is. He's probably feeding
Yeah.
himself somewhere.
That's Bruce. Bruce. And I gotta say, send good vibes off to Bruce Willis
I
because
know, because he
I'm
won't
so
be in the
sorry, Bruce,
movie.
that you're experiencing aphasia. We have that in on the autism spectrum, so I can understand. And you if you get echolalia with aphasia, it drives people absolutely bonkers because you're like, you just repeat what they're saying. But you're also like, what the heck is going on right now? So you're like repeating things, and people are like, why?
But
I don't want
some people take it too long, and I think
to.
he wants to. I respect the fact that he wants to kind of stop before it becomes an issue in his career. I would love to see him still work because I don't care. I just think he's awesome, but I get
Bruce
it too
Willis
at the
is
same
cool. Like,
time.
yeah, you gotta take the
Like,
time
look
to
at
live
Michael
your
J.
life.
Fox.
You
Michael J.
know.
Fox is still rocking it. I don't care what his afflictions are, but I understand, you know, if he had chose not to at the same time, it's just.
I think what's wonderful about Michael J. Fox is he's still like quirky and cool. And like when I see
I
him talking,
know.
I can totally see. You remember how Michael J. Fox, like back in the 80s, he'd be like really quick and talking really fast. Like he still has that, like when you're
He's
watching him.
quirky, yeah.
And so you might have to look for a minute to see that person on the inside, like as we physically change, like, but they're there. They are. They're in there.
Oh yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can see it come out in all of his movements and all of his energies and the way that he's talking, the things that he thinks. And I just love Michael. I don't even, I see it, but I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like I see Michael J. Fox and I see him for his personality of who he's always been. I'm not thinking, you know, when I was watching this lovely lady, this lovely actress who now has MS, she's talking about MS. I notice things that physically change about people, but I'm not sitting there going trying to quantify it into an explanation of why they don't look good enough. You know, like I'm not coming from this perspective of they don't match this or that, but like that's great. There's Michael J. Fox and he's got cool energy. And so you know,
And they are professionals. They still do a great job. So I mean, to me,
they're
I love
working.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I see Michael J. Fox, and like you said, you can still see that quirky little shit disturber personality. Yeah, I don't even his little kid on Growing Pains. It's like
I know it's just, you know, the rest of the world is adjusting their perception, their third eyes to what is acceptable, because for so long I think we've been shown what is acceptable in Hollywood and or what is acceptable on TV and in radio, and we've had that censored for us to the point where it's like, wait, should I swear or not swear? When I'm on a live stream, if I say this, will this happen? Like, and it's like
fuck yeah.
it's like culture has formed the way that, like, if I talk about what you're experiencing, well, I have to do an apology letter tomorrow and stand up in front of everybody. And I think like we've got to be able to be real with each other and talk about it and what we're experiencing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh,
yeah, I mean, like when somebody's passing away, they don't want you to blow smoke up their woohoo. They want a real combo, you know? Like people are like, we've been telling, like I saw this woman on House, and she's such a badass. She looked at me and she was like, am I gonna die soon? And I was like, do you want to? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, we don't know each other. We're just having this conversation. And she said, well, I don't know. So there are some things here. I was like laughing. I said, so wait a minute. I was like, there are some things in this realm you like. And she was like, well, yeah. And I was like, let's talk about a couple of those things and see where it goes. And she was like, okay. So I said, you know, tell me a couple of things. She told me a place that she used to love and that, you know, her ex was there at that space. And we came to this conclusion that the only thing that like she really wanted to stay for was just to go back to that space. Like her child had grown up and she was in physical pain and she didn't want to suffer anymore. But she was living with people making decisions for her and she was on hospice and she was ready to go. She wanted to go. So, you know, at the end of this session, I don't like, it's almost like I don't kiss and tell, but I was like talking to the people that set the session up and they were like, is she going to die? Like, and I said, I ultimately think that's her decision on whether or not she wants to stay in her body or go. But I said, right now, it sounds like she's saying, I'm ready to go. And they're like, we just wonder if she'll want to stay. And I was like, I don't think that that's something that she really wants, though. You know, like she didn't really want to stay. So she's in pain and she doesn't want to feel the pain. I think that's why she hasn't left yet. So it's almost like sometimes the people around us can wish for, you know, all these things for themselves so that they feel comfortable, but that person really doesn't want to be in that body anymore.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
And sometimes
selfishness.
There's hope. Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, if she would have looked at me in my eyes and said, hey, I'm not ready to go, then I would say then we'll approach it that way. But like if you know, if you're telling me you're afraid to leave your body, let's talk about what you're going to be leaving your body for, you know? And a lot of times we go directly towards what we want, you know, whether that's whether that's to stay in the human realm or to, you know, move forward. It's like, I think that in this way, she really didn't have a lot that was keeping her on planet Earth. And it's like interesting because a lot of times when they are in the last and final days of their life, they still want to, one, be seen, 2, they want to know they still matter and they have a choice and an option. And that 3, you can still hear their voice.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is talk to them, listen to them, be with
Yep.
them. Yeah. And
What are you
well, yeah,
doing?
this live has been dedicated now to Maverick. Maverick, thank you so much for being an awesome dog spirit here on planet Earth. We're sending lots of love to your family members that are missing you right now. And Miss Ash, thank you so much for coming on the live today, girl.
Yeah, it's always fun. I like it.
Michael,
thanks
and Michael and who was here first? Eric came in. Eric, thanks for coming in, you guys. It was really cool to come on makeup and share that experience. I have to say it's a very vulnerable experience to be in front of the camera without makeup on, because I always show you guys myself with eyelashes, at least. And or an eye color. So did not have like anything on at the beginning of this live. I was like, oh, you guys are gonna see like how glistening white orb face I really am. So enjoy that. Raw Lindsay Raw. Ash has taught me to be a little bit more vulnerable with that and to show who I am. So I appreciate that. And then of course I'm always inspired by Eric and Michael V, because they are online doing what they love and showing who they are. And Michael, I always see you. And I want you to know that like you always cheer me up when I'm like having a weird moment. I don't know what it is. Like I somehow am like, and I go and I'm just like, I'm just going to do what we all do. Play with the phone. I'm going to play with the phone. I go to play with my phone, and then Michael pops up, and it's like the universe is like, don't have a bad day. Just watch Michael. And I'm like, okay. And the next thing I know, Michael's playing the guitar and he's talking about like, life. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Like I just get to this point where I feel that there's somebody else experiencing this. Like this, you can't say it, but it's like a feeling. And so I always feel like you guys get me. So thank you for always supporting us here online and listening and chatting and having the fun. And I do my best to show up to your lives too. So yeah, I just want to tell my friends, go check him out. You guys check out Michael V. His art is so awesome. It really is. I've been watching what you've been creating, and you've had like some amazing creatures you've created recently. I was like, what is this? But these are really, really, I can't even believe, like I tried to paint the other day, and just to try to paint a flower was an amazing experience. Like, what am I doing right now? I had this piece of like stuff, right? And check this out. This is like face paint almost. It's so cool. You take this and you can just like get it wet and do this. And so I was doing all these things all over my face, and I feel like there is just something so fun about taking paint and doing your own face with it, that it just like the art that you can create on the palette is so much fun. So
and Eric as well. Definitely have to follow Eric as he gets to experience some of his most mystical moments and shares them with us. So make sure you're following both the guys.
Wait, over here, there's a little handy.
I don't see it.
Yeah, no, it's underneath. It's underneath us. Should we go? Should we part? Should we be on our way? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it was lovely hanging out with you all, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Definitely tickle the bell icon, hit subscribe, follow us here on YouTube, and if you are not part of the Intuitive Wellness Circle, check it out. The links in the description. We are going to be putting. I'll put the makeup tutorial on our playlist too, so you guys can see the makeup that I did. Maybe some of you want to use it for tomorrow, and we'll of course save this on there. But yeah, you guys get access to our secret YouTube playlist where you can see these lives. And yeah, you can sign up on my website, and that link is right in my Linktree as well. So enjoy your Hallows Eve or Hallows Eve. Enjoy your Halloween tomorrow and your Days of the Dead.
And keep your pets inside. Keep them safe tomorrow, since it is one of the most dangerous times for pets. So make sure they're home with you safe.
There are people at the shelter. We were told around this time we would not rent. We would not adopt out cats in the month of October or even before October, because people would actually sacrifice them. They would come to get
and not just black cats. Not just. They are the most, but not just that. So yeah, just keep your babies safe.
Yeah, just watch that. I think too, like anybody that's thinking of sacrificing an animal, like shame on you. Like shame on you. Get away from me. Like I feel like there's just some bad vibes there. Like the fact that people would have to protect the animals at this time of year was so sad. But yeah, keep your baby safe. Keep your baby safe. This is dedicated to Maverick, and I know Maverick would
Yes.
want all the puppies and the kitties to be safe. So
Thank you.
thank you, Michael. He says the makeup is awesome. All right, you guys, have a happy Halloween. And Ash, thank you so much for coming on. You guys
Always.
check these guys out. They're great, and I appreciate getting to hang out with you guys tonight. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.